morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. I have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Crystal?
Indeed, we do. The MOU with Iran has been signed in Versailles, and Trump gave a wild press conference that we want to spend some time with. Said some very, very interesting things. That is part of why we are in day, whatever, I don't know at this point, of the complete Zio meltdown, but they have decided to train their ire on one man. That man is not Donald Trump. It is J.D. Vance. So that is an interesting political dynamic that we want to dig into. We're also really excited to be joined by the editor of Amwaj Media. They have had a number of really significant scoops over the course of the Iran war. And so we're going to dig into the details of this memo of understanding, what it says, what it doesn't say, what it means in terms of the possibilities of war and peace going forward. So very much looking forward to that. Trump's new Fed chair has been part of the decision to keep rates the same in a significant announcement yesterday. Of course, Trump has been agitating aggressively for rates to be cut, so we'll see what he had to say on the matter. And the membership list of Peter Thiel's secret society has been leaked, as well as an eyebrow-raising agenda for their next confab. So a lot of very influential, powerful names on both sides of the aisle that have been revealed as part of that exclusive club, Sagar.
Yes, certainly. And maybe they'll meet next in Argentina, where he currently resides. Thank you to everybody who's been subscribing to the show, breakingpoints.com, to support us. Seriously, we deeply appreciate it. We've had so many new viewers who've been coming in and probably enjoying the Zionist meltdown with the rest of us. If you want to keep that up, breakingpoints.com, support our work over here. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe to our channel and listen to this as a podcast. Please share an episode with a friend or rate us 5 stars. Helps other people find the show. But let's go ahead and start, like you said, with the Memorandum of Understanding that has now been signed in Versailles. Here it is in all of its pomp and circumstance. Donald Trump there signing the Memorandum of Understanding in the hall.
Appears to be the Farsi version there.
Yeah, I think there's some Farsi, some English translation there as well. Everybody is clapping, surrounded by world leaders. Secretary of State right behind him, and Macron leads 2 rounds of applause and cries of bravo as the document is signed. I'll hold some of my historical commentary here on Versailles here for a moment, but it is nonetheless extraordinary. One of the reasons why it is being signed electronically and being transmitted between both sides is because they want immediate resumption of the passage of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, which, as of this morning, 3 Saudi tankers appear to be making their way through the Strait of Hormuz. So it does show us that some traffic is beginning to resume. And on the other side, the Iranians know that the moment it's actually signed, considered official, that they get the release of some of their funds, which Trump, of course, addressed. But as you said, we had a wild Trump press conference, which preceded all of this. It's like somebody injected truth serum into him, and all of a sudden, the gaffe is when a politician tells the truth, and there were a lot of gaffes, I think, throughout this entire one. First and foremost is Trump here on nuclear enrichment, being like, yeah, maybe we will let him enrich a little bit. Let's take a listen.
We've been pretty tough on that. It is a little hard, though, when you say that somebody wants it, other people have it, other adjoining states have it, and you're not letting them have it for purposes of electricity and things like that. It's always a little tough. You have to use a little common sense, please.
Yeah, I agree.
Got to use a little common sense.
Agreed. Yeah.
I mean, under international law, it is their right to enrich for civilian purposes. But up to this moment, if you said that, you were mostly like a fringe lefty, usually radical, and now here you have the president like, let's be reasonable about this. Why would we ban them from enriching a little bit for civilian purposes?
Yeah. You were previously surrender monkey. If you said, hey, they said that we won't get a nuclear weapon. They even agreed not to enrich past a certain point for civilian purposes. So I used my common sense before the war, and I was like, what's the problem with that? And yet Trump consistently said that the Iranians would not commit to zero enrichment, as in zero enrichment of uranium whatsoever, or any nuclear material, including for civilian or for medical purposes, and use that as a pretext. Remember, he would consistently say Iran won't, remember the magic words, they won't say the magic words, zero nuclear weapons, which he would define as zero enrichment. Anybody watching the show over 100 days ago. I guess now it's very familiar, and now Trump has come full circle back to this
So
view.
much of it with him, too, was like whoever he last spoke with.
100%.
So I don't know who, what, maybe it was J.D. Vance last in his ear, but somebody gave him some new thoughts on the matter. Because previously, and not just during this war, but leading up to it and the 12-day war and throughout the negotiations, which, I mean, they had a pretty reasonable deal on the table before they started bombing Iran the first time around. But in any case, he kept having his red line shifted by Israel and made more and more extreme. So it became not just no nuclear weapons, not just no nuclear enrichment whatsoever, but also we have to deal with the ballistic missile program, which is another area that he gets to here. And now he says, well, how does that make any sense? If everybody else is allowed to have weapons and defend themselves, doesn't Iran have a right to defend itself too and have some sort of a military presence and have their ballistic missile program? Let's take a listen to that.
So we'll be working on a parallel effort with the Gulf nations to address non-nuclear issues such as the conventional ballistic missiles, which we'll be talking about, and support. I mean, they have to have some because other people have some. We've got to have some. Somebody said you shouldn't give them one. And I have guys, I like some of these guys, but I don't think they're smart. Sir, you shouldn't let them have any missile. I said, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to let Saudi Arabia have missiles, but they can't have them? Yes, sir. Doesn't work that way, It doesn't work that way. And missiles aren't the problem. Missiles they hurt a little location, but they don't blow up the planet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Smart.
True.
Yeah.
Accurate. What, you're going to let everybody else know? You're going to let Israel have whatever they want from our stockpiles, but you're not going to let Iran have any missile, as he said.
In other words, Iran has a right to defend itself, right? That's what it did.
Does Iran have a right to exist?
Does Iran have a right to? Iran has a right to exist and a right to defend itself, right? Yeah, he's right. Part of this just belies the basic fact. Yes, when you lose a war, there are two things that have to happen. Number one, you don't get everything that you want. And two, you have to pay them a lot of reparations. This is Lindy. It's a tale as old as time. You don't conquer the place. Thus, you got to take some gold out of the treasury and, haul it on over and sign a memorandum. And if that doesn't hold, then you go back to war. This is what happens, people. Sorry. The about face in 100 days is kind of what's so shocking about it. But at a basic level, yeah, it's true. But that's why by uttering these truths for the first time, look, from Trump, he can reverse, at any point.
He could say something different today.
Right,
yeah.
He could say something different today. But there is power in the truth. And there is power in what we have been trying to emphasize here for quite some time. How is it that you can allow Israel, a rogue state, to have a secret nuclear weapons program, to have missiles, to bomb 7 of its neighbors, to conquer and annex parts of Syria, the West Bank, Lebanon, and Gaza, and then in a straight face say, you're not allowed to have any even civilian nuclear enrichment, you're not allowed to have any ballistic missile threat. You cannot do that. Or you can, you have to take over the entire country, right? And so that's why, by saying, yes, they have a right to defend itself, and sure, civilian nuclear, we can't say that, and they're like, but you're going to pay them. It's like, yeah, we have to pay them. Otherwise, they're going to continue to keep the Strait of Hormuz. And even paying, as Trump soon addresses, is not even really paying them. We're paying them with their own money, like Obama did, the so-called pallets of cash. Go ahead.
Let me just react to what you just said, because I think you made an important point about the power of truth and the power of reality. And I think that has overwhelmed the propaganda efforts, which were very minimal, by the way, for this war, and pretty pathetic and poorly organized and changing day by day. But the ability of the American people to see through some of that propaganda has really overwhelmed this war effort. And American foreign policy is increasingly built on propaganda and lies.
Yes.
Whether it's things like, Israel's the most moral army on the planet, and they're our great allies, and it's really great for our interests. Eventually, especially, in part because of social media, because you have a much more diverse media ecosystem, you're not able to just keep people in the mainstream press where these propaganda efforts are, come with very few holes in them, are very cohesive. since you have that access, people are just not buying this fantasy world. And the fantasy world is becoming more and more preposterous by the day. I told you a while ago, I was shocked by this. I was talking to my mom, who is not like particularly political. She, most of her life has been an independent. Now she hates Trump, so she's definitely, votes for Democrats by and large. But she was talking about Iran, and she was like, I don't really get it. Like, we're allowed to have nuclear weapons,
Yeah,
they are.
exactly.
She's like, that doesn't seem fair to me.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, Mom, okay. I was pretty shocked that she said that. But people are seeing through a lot of these lies and these propaganda that has been built up over years and years and years. So look, Trump, the one danger with him always is that people hear on one day something that they want to hear from Trump. Just as the Zionists who wanted this war, we're hearing a lot of things from him that they wanted to hear over a lot of days. And now he's saying something different and doing something different, at least for the moment. And so, oh my God, he betrayed us. He's shocked. I mean, this man will turn on a dime at any moment. There is no person he is loyal to. There is no country he is loyal to outside of himself. So, it's remarkable to hear him say these things that, of course, if Obama said it, if Biden said it, it would be, and we would still be hearing about it on Fox News, et cetera. It is remarkable to hear him say those things. But of course, it doesn't mean that this is his fixed, locked-in position. Sure. Doesn't mean that we won't go back to war tomorrow. I mean, Israel is still bombing Beirut. All of this is very tenuous and unstable. But the reason to talk about it is not because Trump is a reliable or good actor here. The reason to talk about it is because I think you're right. I think there is power in truth. And I think these are a lot of things that the American people have intuited, which is why they have been so opposed to this war from the beginning in a way that is truly unprecedented in, I think, in American history.
Mm-hmm. Let's just stick again, and I know some of this is repetitive for longtime viewers, I'm sorry, but let's just think about, let's go back to Biden logic. It's like, we have to arm Ukraine because they're being invaded. Israel invades Gaza, the West Bank, Syria, and Lebanon, annexes their territory in violation of international law, and we enable it. And we ship them weapons. Oh, hold on, what a second. Buka's a genocide. Gaza, that's what is it? Self-defense action. Horrific civilian casualties. Well, except one is orders of magnitude bigger than the other. That doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, does it?
Even the framing of Iran as like the singular evil.
Yeah, exactly.
People watched us and Israel commit a genocide in Gaza for years. And then we go out and try to do our moral preening in the world. Oh, the Islamic terrorist regime, but they're shooting protesters in the street. It's not that Americans are looking at this and go, oh yeah, Iran, they're actually the good guys.
Right.
They're just going like, well, who are we really at this point to go out and lecture the world on moral values? And do we really believe that Donald Trump is so deeply concerned about the rights of protesters in the street in Tehran? Of course, it's preposterous. And so the fantasy world has become so divorced from reality that people did not buy it. They have access to information they didn't used to have. And now you have an American president who is acknowledging things that, and again, this can change in a moment, but who is acknowledging obvious, logical things that many Americans intuited. And it is hard to put that understanding back in the bottle.
Absolutely, yeah. Same with Iraq. I mean, we were greeted as liberators.
Right.
We're going to bring them democracy. We all lived through that. We all knew this is bullshit from day one. It's only the same people who pushed the war are the very same people who are parroting those truths, which is ironic, because in most cases, it's actually the exact same people who are defending and who were pushing it. But as you said, there is immense power in the truth. Here is the next one from Donald Trump about Iran's money and how can we just keep it? That would undermine faith in the dollar. Let's go and put A3 and let's listen.
Can you explain, though, what the difference is between giving Iran U.S. dollars and unfreezing U.S. dollars for
Well,
you?
the unfreezing, that's an easy one to answer. We have taken a lot of their money, and we have their money. We have taken their money. It's not our money. It's their money, and we froze it. At a certain point in time, I guess we're going to have to give it back. If we didn't give it back, nobody would ever invest in the dollar again. If you took their money, because I thought about it, I'm not the most perfect person. I said to Scott, why do we keep their money? What the hell are we giving it back to them? But people from lots of nations, some nations we don't agree with, they have their money. The dollar's become very strong under me. And They don't want to have a little conflict with somebody and end up having the United States just take their money. So if you do that, you really don't have a system.
You're right, sir. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And yet, again, this is a neocon worldview, is that the United States can be the world's reserve currency and bank that just declares when somebody who's spooky and bad doesn't get to have access to their money, like we did with Russia. I'm coming back to Russia. We just said, oh, no, actually, all of your money, it's ours. And as we said at the time, we're like, hey, we're going to blow up the integrity of the entire international banking system and create a alternative, cycle of crypto and of the Chinese yuan that will be used to circumvent the U.S. bank, which actually makes us weaker. That's exactly what happened. And then how did Iran actually facilitate some of those 2 million? And we know at least some people paid the toll. How did they pay? Either in yuan or they paid in crypto. Well, guess what? You laid the ground for that, again, with what happened after Ukraine. So you are watching the reckoning, and we're actually going to talk about this later. People are now bullish back on the dollar after a result of this, because they're like, oh, hey, actually, we could go back to the world's reserve status. It's bad for the United States, especially in an emerging multipolar system where people who are, quote, enemies or bad, or for a president can at any time just turn his back and say all of your money is ours to be able to keep it. This reminds me of the whole palace of cash situation, which I'll be honest, at the time I fell for it because I didn't do enough research. But going back, Trita Parsi outlined all of this on Tucker Carlson's show and laid it out extremely well. He's like, look, he had a certain amount of money, which was paid by the Shah, to the United States for arms. We didn't send the arms, we kept the money. The Iranian regime took the U.S. to court at The Hague, and The Hague was going to rule against us, so we had to send back the money with interest, because that's the rule. And we sent back what was their money.
Well, and they were sanctioned from using any of the traditional banking systems, so how else are you going to get them the money than sending them pallets of cash? And that is the piece where this one is the hardest for me to stomach from Trump, because he has demagogued so much against the JCPOA and the provisions in there and the pallets of cash. I mean, he did the whole thing all in on those, talking about how weak Obama was, how terrible a deal it was, and how we sent them these pallets of cash to fund their terrorist activities, blah, blah, blah. So it is a little bit hard for me to stomach him now acknowledging the truth when it comes to him and his deal of, hey, this is actually their money, and at some point we probably should give it back. Otherwise, this becomes, in a way, a problem for us, because if we are continually using and abusing our status as the world's reserve currency, our domination of the global financial system, then of course nations are going to figure out alternatives. And that is already happening in nascent form. And already our sanctions and the power of those sanctions, they're still powerful, don't get me wrong, but already they're beginning to be diminished and less of a threat than they used to be. Now, that's probably a good thing for the world. But if you're an American president and you're interested in preserving American empire, not such a great thing.
No, it's a disaster. And yeah, I mean, in 1998, that makes a lot of sense. Sure. Where else are you going to go? In 2026? Nope. There's a lot of different avenues that you can go through. And if you're willing to sit there and to suffer, which ultimately that's what happened. The Iranians were like, okay, we're going to take a massive hit. People are going to starve. People are going to be poor. But at the end of the day, we're going to hold out for victory. We're literally under, consistent bombing and attack. This is a absolute war of survival. And as all regimes that are under that exact type of pressure, they did not buckle. They got stronger. They held out for potential terms, and we eventually had to bend the knee. This is how things were going to work out. As you said, by the way, I think this is a good thing. This actually is a healthy dynamic, but this is why it is so intolerable for Israel, because if we treat Iran like a normal country, that erases their regional hegemony over the entire world. That erases the fact that we now have to balance these different interests. And I made this point with Dr. Parsi. Iran's GDP is only 100 billion less than the entire nation of Israel. Now, granted, Israel has a much higher GDP per capita, but there are plenty of small, high GDP per capita nations which overall GDP don't make them particularly important to the rest of the world. You have Iran here, which unsanctioned and reconstructed with that 300 billion, if they're able to sell oil into the global market, to export, any of this and then use it to invest, 25 years from now, between the Strait of Hormuz and the strength of their economy, this is going to be a geopolitical, maybe not powerhouse, but regional power like Robert Pape has consistently said. And he really deserves, he's the first person who really gave me the, vision of this framework. He's right, between the power of geography and then their ability to export this amount of oil, not to mention, look, they have, as the neocons always said, there's a lot of intellectual capital that's locked up in Iran. Sure. If they have the ability over the next 25 years to operate as a normal nation, there is no reason that they will not become massively more economically and strategically important to the world. And just to show the power of their bargaining chip, finally, everybody, I said the number one chirp that annoys me is people said, you said oil was gonna hit 200. I'm like, sorry, I didn't foresee that China would cut 40% of all of its imports for the first time ever in human history.
Thank you,
I
China.
apologize.
Thank you, China.
Also, you should be thanking China. You should be happy I was wrong. And you should thank China for having better EVs and for a shit ton more oil reserve than we do. But we also kept pointing to one thing, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And we're like, hey, all these oil executives say, another month or two or this is gonna be a real problem. And what did everybody say? Oh, you're wrong, it's not happening. Look at the delusional traders on Wall Street. Well, same, power in the truth. Here's Trump saying we had 4 weeks until every Strategic Petroleum Reserve ran dry. Let's take a listen.
Also, we run out of reserves in about 4 weeks. There are reserves all over the world, and we would really run out. And there'll be a time when you wouldn't be able to get it. And you want to see bedlam?
Bedlam.
That's
what we're headed towards.
Again, Chevron CEO, all Rory. Really, these people deserve credit. They were not incorrect.
Yeah.
All they did not foresee was China having one of the world's largest strategic petroleum reserves and massively cutting their energy imports, which I will just say nobody literally could have foreseen that except for the CCP. If China had continued to import oil, the current estimate is oil would have been over $150 to $170 a barrel. Now here, whenever it comes to the strategic reserve, they have access to because the data is all out there. We can all see, lowest level since 1998. Next week, lowest level since 1984. We're like, well, there's not that much oil there. And then when they do, we know how much that we produce on a daily basis. We have no slack in the system. We know what direction that's going to go. Same here from Trump. We would have run out of oil and it would have been bedlam. So the basic reality is that Iran's strategy was correct and that fundamentally the weapon of the Strait of Hormuz will remain for all time a part of the Iranian playbook. And it should be from their perspective. We can either change that by occupying their nation and taking hundreds of thousands of casualties, or we can pay them and we can just live together. I choose the latter. I think most people do too.
It's very interesting to hear Trump say this, to say the least, because this is what the Iranian bet was, right? They bet that we could not take the economic pain, that they could, and that it would hurt us more, and it would force us to come to the table and give them the terms that they had long been seeking. This is confirmation that they were correct, that bet ultimately paid off. All the propaganda of FDD and others who were saying, oh, if we do a blockade of their blockade, they're going to completely collapse. Remember that? They were saying, oh, their oil wells are going to explode and they're going to completely collapse in days. Obviously, that did not happen. And so here you have Trump acknowledging the reason for the timing of this deal is because we ran out of runway. We were weeks away from what he describes as bedlam, because we were running too low on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We weren't the only ones. The whole world's ability to absorb this extraordinarily, truly historic level of an energy shock, that was within days to weeks of coming to an end. And so that's why he was so intent on getting this deal now, because we were out of time. There was another very interesting comment. We didn't pull it, but I think it was a lot of things he said were just very revealing of what was going on in his head as he's watching all of this unfold. And we know how much he watches the stock market and how much market manipulation was a part of the entire strategy this whole time along. And he said, look, I observed that when there was talk of peace, the stock market went up. And when there was talk of war, the stock market went down. And the markets he said, they're more genius than any person on the entire planet. So the markets are wise and all-knowing. So that sent me the message of, hey, I better get to peace, because that's what the stock market wants. I think that was genuinely an influential part of his thinking, was just this very simplistic, oh, peace good, war bad, as judging by the response from the market. So I thought that was very revealing as well. All that being said, I just want to again sound a note of caution. I'm just reading the headlines right now in Haaretz. You've got Israel holding negotiations with the U.S. as it seeks to continue its deployment of troops in southern Lebanon. One person was killed in an Israeli drone strike in a town in southern Lebanon's Nabatea district, according to a local channel. So you still have Israel agitating here. Netanyahu's entire political career is truly on the line. Israel feels that this is existential. We're going to show you some of the continued freak out from their allies here, as well as some domestic, intense supporters of Netanyahu, for example, who are just absolutely losing their minds. They will do whatever they can to undermine this. And Trump is very sensitive. His ego is very sensitive. He could wake up today, see news coverage he doesn't like, and go back to banging the drums of war. None of this is stable. The other thing I will just say on the politics of it is, when Biden withdrew from Afghanistan, it's not exactly the same, but it is a bit of a similar moment of acknowledging the reality of this is a failed.
Yep. Hey, is Brian wearing glasses? Mm, cool. What's going on? What's everyone up to? What's up, Jackbird? How's it going? Glad to see you. What's up, Present? Happy to see you. Tony Cartolucci himself. Weenus, what's up? Mm, we should leave Iran alone. Mm, I mean, yeah, I did, should have done that, fucking 50 years ago or whatever, but maybe it'll work now. I don't know though. Like, I feel like Trump's gonna try to like fucking get them. He thinks he's got like a easy mark or something. He's gonna get them fucking, over a barrel on some business deal or something. I don't know what he's thinking, but he seems really high on the Iranians all of a sudden, which is interesting. Um, kind of. I mean, look, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but kind of seems like maybe he's finally mad at the Israelis, possibly. I don't know. Like, them going after Kushner is interesting. Like Kushner's been getting a lot of hate in Israel, um, which that tells me like it's a business thing, right? Like it's some sort of like Trump is mad that he got cut out of whatever business deal in Lebanon. That was my thinking. Like he was happy with the Gaza shit and he wanted to fucking expedite a peace, so-called peace deal or whatever because he was they cut him into the deal, right? And I think the same thing with Iran, that $300 billion, he's getting a piece of that, right? Like if it goes, like if it passes through the Gulf states and then into some sort of like reconstruction fund, he's gonna fucking snag whatever he can out of there. Um, but Lebanon, I don't think he had any part of it, and I think he said, stop doing the war in Lebanon or else cut me in. And they were like, "Oh, Donald, there's no deal. We're not. We're just fighting terrorism or whatever." And he know they're full. He knew they were full of shit. Um, so, and then he said, "Fuck it." Um, maybe Mm. The head start in the Persian rug market. Trump rugs. Yeah. um, what poll? Yeah, obviously Sagar. I love Crystal. She's great. What's wrong with Crystal? What's up, Groovy? Um, he does they It's just some of the things he's saying. It seems like the type of thing that you say to your one friend when you're mad at your other friend, like when he's at these press conferences with these European buddies. And he's like, "Oh, fucking, can you believe all the civilians they're killing. They're bombing these hotel rooms, these hotels to take out one Hezbollah guy. Like, he seems like he's saying that because he's getting, you know, positive reinforcement, right? Yeah, Sagar's a hard anti-drug guy. He's probably right, you know? I feel like I was duped by the CIA. All my drug use was, I feel like there should be a giant class action settlement to fucking, pay me, recoup my life. My life was ruined by the CIA. Um, the school getting bombed. Yeah, because that's him, though. Yeah, that's accountability. He's not, there's no accountability for him here. That's just like he can say crazy shit happens in war, you know? Because that's different too, right? Like the school, they're claiming it's an accident. Oh, shit happens, whereas in Lebanon, they're correctly pointing out that the Israeli strategy is wait for the guy to go home and then bomb him and kill up the entire building, He was briefed on the Where's Daddy protocol, Did you see Spurs sign that new, that Dutch center back? We're going to have double Dutch central defense. Can't wait. Dude, headband lady was crying during disclosure day. I feel her. That's me too. Fucking Canada roughing up Qatar. They're gonna get you. They're gonna get revenge on you for that brutalizing. Who the fuck was that ref too? 2 red cards. They're already down like 4-0 and he gives them a second red card. He tries to get fired up like Kyle is a secret crush on. Yeah. He does have a secret crush on Crystal, doesn't he? Yeah. That's correct. He ends up looking like a fussy, whiny baby. Yeah. Dude, just no gravitas. Kyle fucking owns him in every category. They're gonna threaten Canada like the Saudis did. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Did he break his leg? I didn't know who it was at first. I was confusing him with this French guy. But yeah, that guy's good. He plays in Italy. Fucking Mexico pulled out a squeaker though, dude. They really had Korea on their back foot. Should have been a draw. That fucking crowd. I blame the fans though. That's like one of the biggest soccer cities in Mexico, and that crowd was fucking so lackluster the whole time. I don't know if it's just like, I don't know, they were miking the audience different, right? Like, seemed like the audiences for the games that were in the US, the crowd noise was a lot louder. I could see it being something like that, but you could barely hear the crowd, and they weren't standing, they were all just sitting there, and they weren't like, like sports teams in the US, like the fans all wear like the same color shirt. It's like we're gonna wear white because they're wearing white jerseys today. They didn't have any of that in Guadalajara. One dude kicked someone, then fell down. The ref wasn't having it. Who? The keeper dropped the ball and they tapped it in. Yeah. And that Mexican keeper, that's his home stadium, but he had a great game. He saved their ass a number of times. So if Qatar got roughed up like that, does that mean that the Swiss are shit? I kind of think they might be. Someone get judo sweep? Is that the guy who broke his leg? Yeah, the Mexico-Korea game was like, I mean, it was kind of boring, but like I watched the first half and then I watched the end, the last 15 minutes. I missed the middle part. I was watching The Simpsons with the kids. But The Simpsons was pretty funny. It was like explain the Simpsons plot line to you, but Switzerland played pretty good against Bosnia. That's true, they did. Yeah, Bosnia looked like shit. I don't know. I'm excited about tomorrow. Mexican Keeper sounds like a title for a movie, like a Guy Ritchie movie. Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll get to that. I got a couple videos. So the Hormuz letter guy said that Iran suspended the 60-day negotiating window because Israel won't stop attacking southern Lebanon. How much more of this is left?
War. We've been here for decades. We didn't accomplish anything. Now is the time to pull the plug. What, we're going to stay there forever? That was basically the reason for the Afghan withdrawal was there is not going to be a good time to do this. So we're just going to do this and acknowledge the reality that is in front of everybody's eyes. Yeah. People leading up to the withdrawal supported it overwhelmingly. If you polled the American people, we looked at these polls, they would say, yes, we should get out of Afghanistan. Then it happened, and it became the single most devastating blow to Biden's presidency. The reason being because there was such a united front across all media apparatus. There were very big, again, credit to Ro Khan, he was one of the only ones who was willing to go out and defend Biden and his withdrawal from Afghanistan. There was such a blanket condemnation. Then, of course, like the horror of American service members being killed, the mess of all that surely did not help anything, although I don't know that there ever would have been a way that this could have gone completely smoothly. It really was like the death knell of his presidency. And so even though Trump here, you know, if this goes through, if we get to peace, et cetera, I mean, the fact that he brought us into war to begin with was an utter and complete disaster. And the acknowledgement of the reality of our losing this war, which is what happened. We lost the war, and what that means, what we're going to have to give in exchange for acknowledging that reality.
For the media class, for sure. Qatar, Swiss, Bosnia, Canada. Oh, I'm thinking of, okay, I'm confusing Canada and Mexico. Okay, so Mexico played South Africa. That's right. Okay. And then the other team in that group is Korea. No. Yeah, Korea, right?
Could be a death knell for Trump's presidency, the way that the Afghan withdrawal was from Biden.
Yeah, because it's like ending a war which you shouldn't have been in the first. That's why even navigating this is so difficult, right? You want to be like, wow, Mr. President, thank you for your strategic wisdom. It's like, well, you got us in this damn mess.
Yeah, you're the reason that the Strait of Hormuz was closed in the first place.
Right, and
gas
today,
is what it is.
Gas, actually, thank God, gas just hit $3.99 a gallon nationally. Good, I'm happy. It was $2.50, so okay. It's like, are we gonna celebrate things? No. That's why instead of Trump, I'm just going to attack the people who are attacking the deal. That's going to be kind of my where I'm at. But yeah, you're not wrong. A lot of people are not going to forgive because it's not like things were all peachy here in the U.S. even before the U.S. went to war with Iran. Last thing, Matt Stoller had a good tweet months ago where he said, I'll believe that a deal is real when Trump starts praising the Iranians in a vaguely homosexual manner. His nascent dude crushes were very on display, not necessarily to the Iranians here, but to a lot of the Arab allies who helped cement this peace deal. Let's take a listen. A6.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding this.
What a nice-looking person. Is he from your country? Is he from your country?
Absolutely.
No, he's got such a nice way about him. My people are they're so mean. Look at him. A handsome guy. Put him. Be careful. No, I can put him in a movie right now. Go ahead. He's a very tough negotiator. He's one of the toughest, actually.
Who was that
guy?
guy?
Look at this man. I'll give you a lesson. He's the most beautiful-looking man. He looks so nice. He's like an angel. But actually, he's as tough as he's a killer. I don't want to. He's a killer. He's as tough as they come. But He looks so
Modi?
good. So he gets you by surprise. So he was in a hotel,
He's really pulling off that vest daishiki combo.
and I met him. And we fell in love, deeply in love. And he didn't even want to see Hillary.
The last person he's talking about there is President Sisi
Of Egypt.
of Egypt, who's like one of the most brutal dictators.
My
He's like,
favorite
I stayed
dictator.
longer,
Yeah.
twice as long as I was
favorite
supposed
dictator.
to. We fell in love.
Fell in love.
So my theory of what happened here that really clinched the deal
Yeah.
in the end and, led to Trump's capitulation on some key concessions is he saw the Iranian men's national soccer team and was like,
And they're
look at
handsome.
these big,
I
strong
mean, they weren't
guys.
that
Handsome.
handsome,
Better
though.
looking
They
than
were all
Tom
so
Cruise.
old.
And he was like, give them what they want. They want to do
They've
a
been
little
through
nuclear
hell.
enrichment. Why not? They want their money back. Who can?
I think I'm right. I think he's getting a piece of that $300 billion. That's why I think he's psyched about it. That's it. I think he's getting some of that money somehow. I'm not sure how it's gonna work, but that's why. Because he's fucking trying to you hold the deal together, right? Like, he's saying shit. Like, it just strikes me as like, like if you, I don't know, like, like if somebody's like, like a finder's fee sort of thing, like I had a dude in Atlanta he was trying to get like 50 pounds of weed or something, and I hooked him up with some guys in Brooklyn, and I mean, statute of limitations is run, so I can get in trouble for it. But it was like, I'm trying to hold the deal together because I'm getting a cut, so like I'm gonna be like everything I can to fucking manage any kind of turmoil. That's how I feel like Trump is acting. Like, Iran's getting the money, but he's getting some sort of percentage of that.
Who could blame them? Give them their money back. I think
the only
I
things
think
he
that's what's really
respects
going on
is
behind the
money and
scenes.
earned media.
There was a chart on Twitter that said, like, as Trump's dementia level rises, also his blatant bisexuality rises in tandem. So that might be what's going on here.
Or just it's just like an open secret. Like, they all know that, That's why Israel's pissed off too. Like, they can't really. There's not a lot they can do about it unless they just want to, I guess they could offer him more money. But it's going to be hard to, Miriam Adelson gave him like $200 million or something. He's probably going to get billions out of that $300 billion reconstruction fund. Plus, whoever he can funnel those deals to, like, he's probably going to get a percentage of that, probably several $1 billion off the top, and then another cut of whatever deals he can put together. Like, oh, I got a buddy who does cement, why don't you hire him to do the cement job or whatever? And that's probably in the deal too. Like, the MOU that they posted online, I don't know that it's going to have all the details, but there's probably some sort of like under the table agreement where like he can facilitate like whatever construction efforts and stuff. 10,000 pounds of fine hash for the U.S. market. Is that where the good hash is? I thought it was in Canada. Ivanka false flag. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Epstein stuff is still coming. I don't know if like they're a little bit more hesitant, right? Because I wouldn't be surprised if like he has even like privately said something to them about it. Like I know you're probably gonna leak more files. You're probably gonna write more stories about all the kids I raped. If you do that, then I will tell them that you're not a real cunt. Whatever. I'll tell them that you're doing a genocide or whatever. I don't know. Whatever leverage he has, I'm sure he's got something he can do. That's what I think. That's what I think the ultimate. Because it's like, we've been talking about this a lot. Like, how are they going to give them the money? Because Iran is going to insist on getting their reparations, their war reparations. They were not going to reopen the strait without it. And Trump was in a bind because he had to find a way to give them a shitload of money without charging a toll or making it too apparent that he gave them a bunch of money. So whatever he put together, he probably told, Qatar and UAE or whoever, like Kuwait, like, you guys probably want to stop being bombed, huh? Well, here's how you do it. Something like that. Two birds, one stone. Multiple birds, one stone. Some undiscovered landry stands. Pine tar kush. Oh, speaking of, Maureen was in Michigan. So I got. These are $5 a piece. These cartridges. Super Lemon Haze, Jolly Rancher, Pineapple Express, Sour Tangy, and Berry Green. Can't wait. I gotta finish this other one so I can smoke these. Fucking Michigan weed is so cheap. I mean, I don't know. It's always cheap in Michigan because there's a glut on the market. I mean, it says produced. What does that say? I mean, it says produced 5/20/26. So, I don't know how long it stays good for, but that's probably a long time, right? It was only made a couple weeks ago. Let's watch some Elmer.
You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am John Elmer. This is the Resistance Report on day 9.
That's what I said. I sent her the store. I'm like, here, go to this store. It's at this exit. You can let the kids go to McDonald's, and then you walk across the street to the store.
86 of Israel's genocide in Gaza.
Nicely.
Day 109 of the battle in South Lebanon, and day 111 of the U.S.-Israeli war on
fucking smoke
Iran.
bongs in the cartridge.
Memorandum of Understanding being signed. Last night was a bit of a surprise. It was supposed to happen tomorrow, but it has been signed. And just because things are moving quickly, I will remind you that I'm reporting this on Thursday, June the 18th. So let's take a look at Lebanon for this week. We will start with this map as usual. This week's operations are particularly concentrated on the right-hand side of this map, Yahmor up to Nabatea. Up on the highlands there, you can see the topography.
I've still never
there,
been to a dispensary in Illinois.
Nabatea, and getting the ridge line around Beaufort Castle, which is in Yahmor there, just north of Metula. That is the Galilee Panhandle that you see running up there. That is Israel below. And Lebanon, as you can see in the inset, because we are always focused on South Lebanon, but you can see in the inset that this is only a small portion of Lebanon. If we look at this next map, you'll see more of the country, but again, couldn't fit it all in. Long and skinny
parts. What is that?
Country and short and square media box. So always takes some editing, but we are going to look at the first operation. If you look on the upper right of that map, thanks. On the upper right, you see the X, the red X up there. That is where this drone was down. So Israeli drones are all over Lebanon. You can see Beirut in the middle on the left there. It's in the Bekaa Valley that this operation was near Baalbek. You can see Baalbek is pretty much directly across from Beirut. It's about 67 kilometers northeast of Beirut. And
I saw they were all posting like, oh, Trump couldn't get anybody good to play at the fucking, whatever, 4th of July. And they had all these famous celebrity, musicians like Stevie Wonder and all. Poor Stevie.
and that's where this Heron drone was taken down.
I mean, I got
If you look
Obama's
down at
speech.
the bottom
You
of
want to
the
watch
map,
it?
you can see
Gonna get
Tyre
mad.
there on the coast and Bintish Bale on the bottom of the map, and then you can also see the Galilee Panhandle again cut out of that map.
Well,
but
like-
if you look at the
I mean, Illinois was criticized because they made the licenses so expensive. You know, it was like $100K just to get a license to open a shop. And I think Michigan was a lot cheaper.
place where the Galilee Panhandle is, you can see how steep it's getting into the mountains of this stage of the battle. Obviously, all of South Lebanon,
I mean, good for Michigan.
are
For
rolling
Michiganders.
hills into the Lebanon mountains. So I wanted to bring you a full sense of the scale of those mountains,
Did he?
which I think this map does. This map was made by Fabian Lazo.
I blocked him.
Yeah,
You got the
important to
seahorse?
See the
You heard Jewel
location where
talking
this
about it?
drone
It sounds
was
good.
down. Now let's take a look at number 3.
How much is it?
This is Heron Israeli
Murder
Heron
Mitten.
1 drone. This is their original flagship drone. This is the one they have sold all over the world.
Did you see?
To countries all over the world?
You see
using
that
them
thing I
for-
posted? Like, Lukashenko had said something about all the kids they were killing, and then the next day they like fucking Ukrainians bombed a bus full of Belarusian soccer players, like kids.
Surveillance. This is the first time the Islamic resistance in Lebanon has downed one of these drones. There you see the missile that took it down. They blur the 358 missile. The resistance in Lebanon and in Yemen and in Iran have been using this missile to down drones. This is the drone killer that has taken down at least 50 U.S.
Hey, what's up,
Reaper
y'all? This is
drones.
Dex with Considerate Flowers, and I'm super stoked to show you one of my favorite devices, the Lucas Seahorse Pro, and 3 ways to use it.
No, I have a
Coming
tube
straight out
like
the box,
that.
This device is ready to go. The first way to use it is a portable dab pen. There are 3 key features you need to know to get started. 1, the heating coil underneath the protective cap. Go ahead and pop that off. You've got your on and off switch here, so 5 clicks to turn it on. And then you've got your mouthpiece here, which you're gonna inhale from. I've got some of our Blue Dream Delta 8 THC sauce right here.
Delta 8.
And we're
Isn't
gonna dab
the-
that.
Yeah,
So
fine.
all you need to do is hold down that on button. You'll see you've got the LED behind it. Blue is the low temp. You want to start with blue. You
Yeah,
can
that
always
battery
go up
must
for
last like 3
different
seconds.
consistency of sauce or wax. Dab away.
I mean, isn't that just the same
Okay,
shit
the
that's
second
in
way to
here?
use the Seahorse Pro,
The
and my
wax?
favorite, utilizes the dab mode feature, the included connector tube, and your favorite water pipe. Attached the mouthpiece to the tube and inserted the male end into the female end of my water pipe. So now we're gonna do 3 clicks to enter dab mode. 1, 2, 3.
So can I plug this into
30
the
seconds
hose?
while the light pulses and we'll be ready to go. Now the light's a solid color, we're ready to start dabbing.
You put ice in the tube? Damn, that's a nice hit. Look at that. Wow. Yo.
That's gonna give you a super clean, you're able to take massive rips. So we've got
Yeah,
about 30
I wanna take
seconds
some
on that light
massive
so you can get
rips.
another one in.
Then how do I burn it then without the hose? No, I mean, I have a tube like that. I can probably, not a
Massive
tube,
rips
sorry.
on
I
this
have a
girl.
bong that looks like that one. I could probably attach a hose
Okay,
to
and the
it.
third way to use the
You know,
Seahorse Pro
actually-
is as
It came with a weird adapter. I never understood what it was for. I wonder if that's somehow for this. I gotta go find it. I know where it is. It's downstairs, but the green tube. Yeah, well, couldn't I just put the tube in there and hold my hand over it and not let the air out? I'm sure that would work. Right? Or like tape it or get like a rubber band or something. Yeah. I think it would fit too, because the bong I have looks just like that. Well, it's not just like that, but it's that shape. Da Vinci for my 510 cars is an attachment to a hose, but I had to get a dragon egg for my concentrates. Yeah, I don't want to spend any more money on fucking ways to smoke weed. I'm still bitter about like all the different. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Like every couple of years, there's like a new way to smoke weed, and you have to like reinvest in new lighters and fucking tubes and whatnot. I hate it. I have all these fucking torches. It's such a pain in the ass. That's why I just smoke the cartridges. It's just so much easier. I'm sick of fucking having to get like new tools. Even this, I have to buy a new one of these like every year, basically. Pain in the ass. Oh, and I bought a nice fucking cartridge, whatever that's called, vaporizer. And then, of course, it doesn't work anymore.
As a vape pen for your cartridges. So first things first, unscrew your heating coil here. We'll pop this off. And then we are going to add our Sour D Delta 8 THC cartridge. Get that screwed in here. And what's super cool is now you can interchange all of this out, so you can hit the cartridge through your water pipe. You've got your coil ripping all the sauces through your water pipe, taking this on the go. Say your battery, vape pen battery runs out, switch it to your Seahorse. Just love the whole flavor.
That's a good call. The whole leaf vaporizers are still the same from when I was a kid, huh?
Seahorse Pro. So once
the
it's
exact
attached,
same.
just rip away.
Remember the first time I saw one of those when I was a kid? I just remember my mind was fucking blown. I was like, where did it go?
And that's that. Seahorse Pro. Available at consideritflowers.com.
Let's see. No more torches. Da Vinci. You don't need torches anymore. Carts are nice. This just doesn't hit as nice as I want it to. It's annoying hitting these. I want to hit something smoother and bigger. You can't really take like huge rips off of this. Like it gets too hot too quick. And not fucking, burns my mouth and shit.
And a dozen or so Israeli drones you can see hit there, decapitating that drone at 23,000 feet. And one of the reasons why these drones are harder to reach is the man-portable systems that I'll show you coming up. They don't reach that high. You can see the plane headless here falling to the sky. The resistance is going to capture this vehicle. You'll see that in coming videos. But the 358 missile is showing you the different views here, the thermal imaging. They're all over this with multiple angles on this particular drone up in the Bekaa Valley near Baalbek. If we look at the next slide, you can see the missile that it is. I've talked about this a bunch of times because this is the missile that was taking down the Reapers in Yemen. So as soon as that war started after October 7th, immediately Yemen was taking down drones, and by the end of their battle with the US, they had downed more than 25 Reapers using this particular missile, which is a cross between a surface-to-air missile, a cruise missile, and a loitering drone. It has all of those parts in it. It's rocket boosted, it's launched, and then once up in the air, it loiters around in like a figure-8 pattern and waits for the target using thermal cameras, using cameras as well.
That shit loiters?
Electro-optical targeting, and then ultimately a laser proximity fuse. So when the loitering drone, the 358 that you're looking at here, comes in proximity of the target vehicle, it explodes in an area kill of that drone, which is basically exactly what we saw on video there. Hezbollah video was a very sharp video of it. But again, to down it at 23,000 feet is impressive. If we take a look at the next slide, this missile had been around for 4 years before it was publicly shown. This is the first time it was publicly shown to show to the Russians. This is the IRGC showing it off. But before that, in 2019, missile parts from this had been interdicted by the naval blockade in Yemen. And so the Americans had found the component parts that were being shipped to Yemen to build this missile, and it confounded them because they didn't know. They thought it was at first a cruise missile, then they thought it was a loitering drone, they thought it was a surface-to-air missile. It has parts of all of those things, and it really confounded the U.S. During this time, 2019, up until what the photo you're looking at here is September 2023, the missile was taking down U.S. drones, but hadn't been acknowledged openly by the Iranians. So this is the first time, September 2023, that they show off the missile. And of course, that is a present date because October 7th was just a few weeks later. Yemen joined the war pretty much right away. They joined the war and expanded the war from Gaza into the Red Sea and began taking down U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drones with this missile. And up till now, the resistance, as you saw in the previous video, they blur the launch of this missile. And in Yemen, they did the same. They don't, they're using ambiguity. Everybody knows the missile exists, but they've been hiding the missile that is responsible for, like I said, something like, depending on how you want to count them, something like 60 kills in the last 2.5 years since the war in Gaza started. Let's take a look at the next slide. You can see Hezbollah put out an air defense video. There's a Hermes 450 and a Hermes 900. Those are the other, the Hermes 900 is maybe the other flagship drone. The reason that the Heron is the flagship drone is because the one that they sold to all the other countries. But here you're seeing Mossad manned portable air defense systems used by ground forces, and we saw these earlier in the battle, launched at helicopters, and really they got rid of the use of helicopters in South Lebanon very early on by using these missiles and firing on them, and they use them against drones to chase the drones away. They don't always get them. The drones are higher than than the highest elevation of the manned portable systems. But there's the Heron that was down, and it says in defense of Lebanon and its skies. So there's the multiple different types of air defense systems and air defense operations. 27 times Hezbollah fired on Israeli drones and turned them back in the last 3 weeks, and one of that Heron was shot down. Let's take a look at number 7 and look at the maps of where we're going to see these resistance operations today. Again, if we start with your eyes in the bottom right-hand corner of that map, you're in Israel, you're in the Galilee Panhandle. If you go diagonally from the bottom right to the upper left, you'll see Zautar Asharkia. That is where most of the battle is happening. In the upper left corner of this map, if you go a little bit to the right, you see Yahmar there. That is where the Beaufort Castle is, right on the edge there where you can see the ridge line and obviously the high ground. And around it is the Litani River. That's the dark areas that you see on those cliff faces is the Litani River. So it's an area close to Israel, but it's north of the Litani River. And they made a big deal about that. And Israel's movements have been to push towards Nabatea, which is the largest city in central South Lebanon. Also, you could see onto the upper right-hand corner, you see Hiam. We're going to see some operations from there, and then down along the Panhandle, Edessa, we're going to see operations from there as well on this show. But we are going to start by showing you, as I did last week, I just think was useful for the audience to see what it is exactly that we are watching slam into all of these vehicles. Battery on the top, PG-7BL anti-tank warhead from an RPG in the middle there, and the fiber optic spool trailing out, allowing preventing the vehicle from being jammed and allowing really accurate directions from the pilot to the vehicle itself. So that is one of the builds, but as I've told you, those are component parts. And they can be set up in different ways. So if we look at 8B here, this showed up on a video yesterday about to hit a Namur troop carrier, and we see in this shadow one that we have a reverse of the order of the parts. We have the PG-7BL on the top, the anti-tank weapon on the top, the battery in the middle, and again, we're seeing spools. And I've said this on this program for the last 3 months. We're not sure what percentage of drones are fiber optic, but these obviously give us pretty good indication. Seeing this one here in the shadow, we're going to see another one later on in the program, also in the shadow, that was built this way. So there's flexibility, which matters for distance, for weight distribution, for the ability to fly, to have these weights balanced out. And so you can see the way the different component parts work on this. So I thought that might be interesting to show everybody before we watch 20 minutes of them slamming into various Israeli armored vehicles. Let's take a look at 8C. This is in Majd al-Zun. This is in the western sector. Israel has begun pushing into this area. This was a pocket that they did not control, but you can see they destroyed it with artillery shelling and airstrikes. But they have moved into this area since the Memorandum of Understanding. He
says we don't have fiber for internet.
Into this area, and immediately Hezbollah attack their advance.
I think this is different fiber anyway.
An armored troop carrier. That's where you see the Shadow. 3 RPG operations, 3 anti-tank guided missile operations, 50 rocket and artillery ops, 2 FPV drones versus tanks, 7 FPVs. 2 FPVs versus troops, 7 versus tanks, and 1 FPV versus a D9 in the first 3 days of their move into Majd al-Zoun. So this gives you a kind of an idea of how Hezbollah is going to handle this ceasefire period. If the Israelis advance, they're going to be met. You can look at number 9 here. They're going to be met and attacked, and that happened yesterday. Israeli troops were hit by 2 FPV drones outside of their tanks. 5 were wounded in 2 strikes. And then 8 other casualties yesterday in a IED that foot soldiers detonated that killed 1 and wounded 7 officers and soldiers, additional officers and soldiers. So 13 casualties yesterday alone. So the war certainly is not stopping in Lebanon. And Israel is not projecting any indication that they're even going to stop.
Fiber for
so we have to see how that unfolds in the coming weeks.
Subscribers got that fiber
on camera there, getting chased down. And again, this is the kind of this operation is actually from early in June, but you can see an entire base full of options. This is Miskav Am, entire base full of options, and already by the end of May, early June, they're skipping the tanks and going for the soldiers. We can look at number 10 here. This is in Odessa. Again, this was along the Galilee Panhandle. This is going to be an FPV drone strike against an IDF M109 self-propelled 155 howitzer, 155 millimeter artillery shells that rain hell down on civilians. These are tools that the Israelis use. Essentially looks like a tank with an artillery gun on it, and they use these all along the border of Gaza, of course, rained them down by the hundreds of thousands. And so the resistance is targeting this vehicle over all of the other vehicles, because this is the vehicle that's doing the most damage to civilians in South Lebanon. So that is a direct hit and the destruction of that M109. Let's look at number 11. We're going to chase more soldiers here. This is in Hiam. Of course, Hiam is famous for its resistance, famous for its prison break at the May 2000 fleeing of Israeli soldiers, the humiliating defeat of the Israelis. The people of Hiam broke into the torture prison that Israel ran with its collaborator army. You can see the 2 vehicles on the road. This drone spots them dismounting, and they're heading into the house. There you see 1, 2, 3, 4 soldiers heading into the house. Drone comes around and catches this group of soldiers going into the house. On this day, the same day as this operation, the Israelis reported that 4 soldiers were wounded in an FPV strike. So we're probably looking at them there. That was on June 7th. Number 12. We're going to see a Humvee come around the corner here, see the drone. It's about dead center. It's going to slam on his brakes. You see the dust pile, and both sides of the Jeep, they're jumping out of the Humvee, and the anti-tank rocket hits the Humvee, which will explode the Humvee.
Poor bastards. Put
shrapnel all over that area. This is in Hiam. And one more 13 is also in Hiam, targeting, this is just really smart targeting we've seen, targeting these M113 mobile, remotely operated tank bombs. The Israelis use these remotely operated to bring explosives into Lebanon to blow up the house is probably right in front of it there. And also the vehicles themselves blow up. We covered that extensively in Gaza, where they were used by the scores, if not hundreds, using these APCs that can no longer withstand the modern battlefield. But Israel has thousands of them that were given to them by the Americans in the 70s. So
I mean, what are they going to do, man? They're fucked. When that thing gets that close, they're done.
Car bombs, except they're tanks.
Imagine having a bomb blow up in your face.
Unbelievable destruction.
So bad.
Criminal car bomb by the American-funded Israeli military. Let's take a look at 14. It's going to focus just in on the area. The X on the right is Beaufort Castle. These next operations are going to cover the area from Yahmor that you see down on the bottom right of the map. Again, you see the topography. This is a NASA map of the topography of Lebanon.
You could dive in one of those ditches, maybe?
It really backs what we see on all of these videos of the camera on board shooting the beauty of South Lebanon, but also how difficult an area it is to fight. For both sides, but of course the advantage is on the indigenous guerrillas who know the area, and this is where they have put up a stiff fight in Zoutar al-Sharqiya and Yahmor near Beaufort Castle. because the Israelis are pushing up to Nabatea.
For people who jump down the ditch?
That map. So that's where these operations will go. Let's start at 15.
Where the chaff grenades at? What do you mean? Were you paying attention?
Hezbollah drone here is going to chase down a group of
from
soldiers.
the Israelis. No, they don't got shit. They got nothing.
Soldiers. This operation was on June the 2nd. All of the videos that I show you every week were published in the week between when you saw me last. So these are all new videos. Everything is new. And none of the videos are edited inside.
Some of them have that that interceptor thing or whatever. It's supposed to launch like interceptors to take down a rocket fire. And okay, assuming that's true, it regardless, it's not tuned up to be able to pick up the drones. So they just fly in and land on top of the shit, basically. You heard Elmer. They're taking out the soldiers instead, I guess. I mean, I feel like that is probably better tactically.
The videos. This is how Hezbollah presents these videos.
You can take out 4 soldiers
in various.
You can take out a handful of soldiers.
Would be better if they ran in various different directions. They all go in the same directions, and the IDF admitted that day that an FPV drone strike wounded 4 soldiers on that day. So that appears to be what we're looking at there. 16, we can look at targeting of a Humvee also in Zoutar al-Sharqiya. This is one of 24 Humvees destroyed in the last 3 weeks, and this week was really only a half week compared to the tempo of previous operations of previous weeks.
Yeah, this is the tempo for sure. I mean, look at this.
Destroying that Humvee. Let's take a look at 17. This is a D9, and there was only 4 D9s in the last 3 weeks, because as I reported last week, the IDF has admitted to a drastic reduction in engineering vehicles. These vehicles were being destroyed. They were too easy to destroy, and so as a result, dramatically curtailing the engineering operations of the Israelis in South Lebanon, which is the destruction. It's the destruction of family homes that Israel is doing because it cannot defeat Hezbollah militarily. Let's look at number 18. This is also Zoutar al-Sharqiya. You can see the landscape of these towns, and each and every one of these drones is collecting intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and targeting acquisition information for the future of this battle should Israel remain in the buffer zone. Where they are in the buffer zone is so well known to Hezbollah at this point. There's the direct strike on the Namr troop carrier there.
Ooh.
And as I said yesterday, outside of a Namr troop carrier, 5 soldiers were wounded, 2 seriously in a pair of FPV strikes. Let's take a look at number 18. You're going to see on the wall there the shadow of the drone. Also, there it is there. You can see it flying around the house that's been destroyed by shelling. That's what shelling does to a house compared to airstrikes. The shells are murderous in Gaza, in a tight space of Gaza. But you can tell the difference between the shell and the aerial bombs. This is against another Namr. There he spots it after a tour of the village, after logging a reconnaissance mission. All valuable information even before that strike on the Namr.
Ooh.
There.
Blew them up with their intel. Oh.
Let's take a look at number 19. This is in Yahmar now. This is near Beaufort Castle. You can look around the surroundings and see the castle. This is a mobile communications shelter. It's an Elbit shelter. We reported on this earlier because they've been targeted before. It's a mobile communications and command hub. And as soon as it was placed, it was hit. This is FPV number 2 flying over. And look in the bottom left, you can see the burning from FPV 1's work. And that's the destruction. You can see the Israelis running away from that site there that they had in their mobile communications station. So it is burnt, completely destroyed. You can see that. This is 20 minutes later. So the whole cabinet has been destroyed. But this vehicle is going, the second drone, that's what it's showing you there, that it completely destroyed it. A lot of people ask for battle damage assessments, even though we show battle damage assessments every single week. They completely destroy an anti-tank weapon against a vehicle or a shelter like that, completely destroys it. So here he's going to hit the Hemmet. And that is the logistics vehicle that brought the cabinet. So they drop off the cabinet. You can see it's got an unloader on the back. It drops off the cabinet for this advanced position, this forward operating base that the Israelis will use. And so Hezbollah targeted the cabinet, the shelter, and then targeted the truck that brought it. And as I've said, targeting these HEMETs is very significant. And the number of them, Hezbollah has realized this significance for sure, because in the last 3 weeks, they have targeted 19 of these HEMETs. And these logistical vehicles support the entire operation. So these are high quality hits. Even though people like to see the tanks, it's these vehicles that make the operations in the south
construction
more
equipment
and more difficult. Let's look at number 20, also in Yakmar. This is right around Beaufort Castle. Another Namur troop carrier. And we know that they penetrate the Namur troop carrier. You can see this one has put up tactical netting over the rear door, which is its weakest point. And it looks like the drone hits that, whether it detonates it and gives it time for the shape charge to form, which I believe it does, because as soon as there's contact with the RPG fuse, it sends out the shape charge, which will just tear through that netting. So that is number 20. Let's look at 21. This is an OFEC. So again, out of this entire base full of tanks, look at there's dozens of them. They find the OFEC command vehicle. So this is a tank where the commanders operate out of, and they've got netting all over it, but not on the back, and it gets hit and destroyed. Very finite number of these command vehicles. They're built on Merkava 2 hulls, and then they're just full of command and communications gear. So high quality strikes all through this week's report. We could look at another Humvee 22. The destruction of the village each week that we show this, the destruction is worse in these villages, and Israel is promising to erase these villages. The resistance is promising to not stop fighting until the last Israeli soldier is out of Lebanese territory. And they have been very clear about that. In this first week, they have not waited to see if the Israelis would stop. It's clear the Israelis have not stopped. The IRGC reported 84 ceasefire violations in the first 48 hours. So Hezbollah has carried on its operations. Look at 23, also near Beaufort Castle, which you can see in this land where the Israelis are attempting to take this ground so that they can move to the next high ground and push on Nabatea. That is roughly their plan, and where the base of the operations has been over the past 7 days since you last saw me, although many of these videos are from the previous week. That's the way Hezbollah publishes them, usually a week lag. But like I said, everything is new. And that's a turret gap, so that's an excellent place to strike from the resistance perspective on those tanks. A poor place to strike from the Israeli perspective. Let's look at 24. You can see Beaufort Castle there up at the top of the hill. And this is an operation against another tank. FPV drone strikes in the last 3 weeks. This week, 34. Last week, 37. The week before, 37. 24. 30 of them have been against tanks. So this is one of the 30 anti-tank operations using the FPV drones. So it's not like they've stopped hitting the tanks. And we know that at least we know, we haven't seen from the tank. We saw one tank burning from an open hatch, multiple from an open hatch. And we saw one that was struck in the back door burning. But we know that the Namurs, which are the same hull and chassis as the Merkava, we know at least 2 of those have been penetrated by the PG-7VL. So they work on these tanks. 25? Is that 25? There's Beaufort Castle again in the left there. The Israelis are not appearing to hold the castle. Hezbollah did not defend the castle in the immediate, in the final Israeli push on the castle. It's a symbolic place. It's not of significant military value in the grand scheme of the battle in South Lebanon. Here against the reverse, against the rear door of that tank, maybe looks like it hits the track that you can see there on that one. 26, this is over on the coast now. This is Bayada. This is where the Israelis have pulled up stakes, but the other day they brought in a command vehicle here. You'll see a Hummer underneath netted camouflage tactical shelter, and Hezbollah finds it as soon as they got there. But you can see otherwise the town has been abandoned. These are the bases that Israel has abandoned and the vehicles that they have pulled out. One more 27 against a Namur troop carrier in Ainata. This is along the Galilee Panhandle. And number of operations against Namurs, there was 14 in the last 3 weeks. And against troops, there has been 25 in the last 3 weeks against troops. So Tanks and troops, similar, Humvees and logistical vehicles at the same pace as tanks and troops. So really seeing the spread of these operations to high quality operations, quality over quantity with the FPVs. And let's take a look at this 28, because after all of these drone strikes, Hezbollah put out this PSYOP for the Israelis that pokes fun at Israel's pager operation in September 2024, which Israel is just so proud of, and Trump was so proud of too, and Netanyahu gave Trump a golden one of these pagers that Hezbollah, when they got the page from them, they had to use 2 fingers to turn off the page when they got it, and that was what detonated the pagers. And so Hezbollah's response to this is to say no need to press, because these drones, you don't need to press these drones before they blow up in your face. So a little bit of Hezbollah PSYOP on the pager ops, because of course the pager op was when the world said, oh, Hezbollah's been defeated. 1,500 or 2,000 pagers blew up in mid-level Hezbollah and Hezbollah fighters and children who picked it up. And Israel was just so proud of this indiscriminate terror attack. So Hezbollah pushing back on this, and we know that I've shown you lots of times over the last few months, fighters with missing fingers still on the battlefield. It didn't, whatever Israel thought that was going to do to Hezbollah's ability to resist in South Lebanon, they were wrong about that as well. Let's look at 29, because it's not just FPV drones. I try to show this every week. This is Syed 107 drones. These are constantly being fired, and they're being fired at a rate. This week, there was more one-way attack drone operations, and as you'll see on this video, they're going to launch 2 or 3 on this video. They're always swarms. Usually always swarms, so multiple in each operation, but separate operations this week. There was 35 separate one-way attack drone operations. The drones you're seeing here be launched the previous 2 weeks. There was 75 others, so more than 100 in the past 3 weeks.
Crime against humanity failed.
More than FPV drone strikes, and less than rocket operations, which we'll get to after this one. But this is a good view of what the fighters are up to in the field. We don't get a lot of seeing them in the field. We have up late, but this next video is actually the incoming. So we're gonna have audio in this one, and you're gonna hear an explosion around 12 seconds into this. So just be prepared, dear listeners. Number 30. You can see that there's the same drone that was launched. This is Israeli footage showing the drone coming down on a base in Shlomi. Boom. So that's targeting a military base in Shlomi. And interestingly enough, this was the drone strike that Trump was saying in Ali's report. And if you didn't see Ali's report on the Iran Memorandum of Understanding, you should listen to it. It was excellent. But this is what Trump was talking about when he says, when 2 drones fall in the desert and don't do anything, you don't need to strike Beirut. Well, Israel used this as an excuse to strike Beirut, to escalate the conflict and to try to subvert the peace, the ceasefire agreement, the Memorandum of Understanding that the Iranians and the Americans were close to signing. But this is not inside Israel. This is in a military base on the border. And then this is what Israel responded by bombing Beirut. And then the Iranians were geared up to respond to that hit on Beirut, and Trump called them off. And Trump called them off and added concessions. The Iranians added concessions onto the MOU based on the fact that they weren't able to respond to that, and made an even more favorable deal. So you can see from those direct strikes the effectiveness of the one-way attack drone. And now just for this last video, I want to show you this legendary truck operation. Again, I've shown you a few of these, and they never get old. These fighters pulling off the cover, the camouflage on their Fajr rockets. These are Fajr 3 rockets, 90-kilo warheads. Half of that is high explosives. You can see the fighters here adding the fuses to the end, and now they're going to back this truck out. You're going to wonder, what does the cab of this truck look like? And it looks like that, and it still works. You see him pulling off his 3-point turn there, and this fighter says that he says that they're on the right side, they're on the righteous side of this battle, and then he salutes Abu Hadi, Nasrallah, and Naim Qassem. See, the truck works. It works perfectly good. And he goes off in another one of these trucks. I showed you this with the Fadi truck launchers as well. These launchers have been struck. Hezbollah fixes them and gets them back out into the field to carry out these operations. Rocket operations in the last week, this counts as one. What you're watching here counts as one operation. This would be one field report. Sometimes it's just a line in a field report that has multiple of these launches, but you can see this is a single operation. This week there was 40 rocket operations. Last week there was 90, and the week before there was 85. So these are a constant at Israeli troops in South Lebanon, hammering them with these rockets, and also qualitative missiles that they're hitting them with as well. There was 12 missile ops this week itself, and 2 firefights. So there was 2 confrontations with that required the fighters in the south to have a gun. The Israelis don't want the smoke at all. They don't want to fight, and it's possible to be a resistance fighter in South Lebanon fighting against the Israeli army and literally not need your gun. Because they won't come close enough to fight. They carry everything out. As soon as the Israelis get contact, they pull back and they call in airstrikes. And so as a result, there was 2 firefights. Last week, there was 1 firefight, and the week before, there was 0 firefights. So 3 in 21 days of intense battle. So just remarkable. And there's the legend in the front seat giving the victory sign from his truck that works perfectly fine. And 33, that is 33, so he's the legend. Yeah, you can see there that the truck works perfectly well and executed that mission. So this has been the Resistance Report for day 986 of Israel's genocide in Gaza and day 109 of Hezbollah's defense of South Lebanon.
Closure's coming. Thanks, Elmer.
There's been all kinds of UAPs seen over the years. There's been crafts that look like flying saucers. There's been orbs, aerospace vehicles that look like Tic Tacs.
You seem like a regular, sane person, and you make this documentary.
Age of Disclosure debuted at #1 on Amazon Prime.
Shut up.
The Age of Disclosure,
yeah,
really good. Can't recommend it enough.
I'm trying to know what Vice's take is going to be.
The Age of Disclosure.
What's the biggest surprise?
It surprised me how in sync everyone I talked to was, regardless of the fact that most of them didn't know each other.
Right.
They had different belief systems, but they all were saying the same thing.
All right, here we go. I'm very excited about this. I know
weren't all
when
saying
I'm
the
excited
same
about
thing,
a
though,
podcast
man.
because I have too many questions, A, and I want to ask them all at the same time, B. So we're going to relax.
Cool.
We're going to go slow. We're here with Dan Farah, Hollywood producer, began your career as an assistant in ICM, made a film, very, very, very famous film, Ready Player One, with a very famous guy, Steven Spielberg. So you're like a success in Hollywood, and then you make one of the best documentaries of all time, #1 doc on Prime.
The American people are ready to receive the truth.
Humanity is not the only intelligence
Democrat
in the universe.
getting in
To
on
distill it, because I've been following the sort of UAP, UFO,
Democrats.
we're not alone thing. As a journalist, I was a skeptic, and let's put some rigor into the study. And what I had a problem with, and this is why I like your film so much, what I had a problem with is not the facts, but the delivery of the facts. Everyone was crazy, or looked crazy, or was a wingnut.
Dude, you're
and
crazy,
so
man.
the
Go back
message
to
was getting
Canada.
killed by the messengers. And then I watched your film, which is
You're still doing
bipartisan.
the
It has
accent,
everybody,
by the
all
way.
the presidents. You have Obama, Clinton, Trump, you have Rubio, you have pretty much every senator and congressperson on the bipartisan committees for intelligence, and you have NSA directors, all saying it's real.
I said he was
Dan Farah,
hamming
thank
it
you for
up and
being
using it
here.
around.
The film is The Age of Disclosure. I recommend everyone go see it. You can see it on Prime. It's #1 doc. On
Apparently he
Prime.
talks like that all
Thanks
the
for being
time.
here. Let's get into it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Problem. Spielberg. You do a film with him, Ready Player One. Then you do The Age of Disclosure. And that guy does Disclosure Day right around the same time.
I am much more inclined now than I was to make Close Encounters to really believe that we're not the only intelligent civilization in the universe.
Is he accusing him of
I
being
think
a
it's
deep
great.
state
I think
op?
it's great. Yeah. So first off, I think he's the greatest filmmaker of all time, hands down, like indisputable, the greatest. Also, my interest in this topic comes from his work. So like, I'm 46. My childhood was the 80s and 90s, and I grew up watching movies like Close Encounters and E.T.
I
Close
feel like
Encounters
he's
made the
kind
biggest
of
impact on
dumb,
me. It's hands down my favorite
Farah,
film of all time.
but I
And
think
it really,
his heart's in the right
captivated me.
place.
It made me interested about this topic. It made me think about those big questions like, are we alone in the universe? Does the U.S. government, in fact, know more about this topic than pop culture suggests? What's the key thesis in Close Encounters, E.T.,
He's
TV
kind of
shows
like
like
the new
X-Files,
Tom
is that the
DeLonge.
government does in fact know more about this and keeps the truth from the public. I constantly wished someone would make a serious, sober doc about this topic and only interview people who have direct knowledge of it as a result of working for the U.S. government. Right. You know, because like you, I always felt like the coverage of this topic kind of fell short. You know, it wasn't the right people talking about it. And even like the great docs made over the years, they always have some weak link. They'd have somebody in there which is kind of like, okay, who's this knucklehead, right?
Shane Smith's not...
So I always wish something like that existed, and then...
He's not really... I don't know, he gave him an easy way out, I guess, but like, he's basically pointing out, like, what's your meteoric rise to fame? Like, in association with Spielberg, what's your deal here? I mean, I guess you can look at it either way. I mean, he could just be a guy who, like, fucking, you know, lucked into the Spielberg spot and then used, because it's what he did, right? Like, he parlayed that into getting funding to do the documentary. I don't know. It seems like it would be pretty easy to get, like, the Bryce Sable podcast, right? Like, they talk about when they were making Dark Skies in the 90s. And, they were approached by some naval intelligence guy who was like, you know, like, oh, like, come work with us and we'll do, like, controlled disclosure or whatever. Like, we'll use you guys to do soft disclosure on television. Some deal like that, but, like, you know, then you have to, like, toe the party line. Right, like you have to like stick to what the naval intelligence wants you to say. I mean, I definitely believe it, right? Like, seems like it would be like if you were the deep state, like if you were Wardex, and you saw that there was this big high-profile guy doing a UFO documentary. You would definitely want to approach them, right? And try to do, you know, offer them a deal like I just described for Bryce Sable. Right? I mean, I don't know though. They were a bit sloppy and heavy-handed in the 90s. Like all the stuff with the crop circles, and then the aviary, and then this shit. The way they were obviously approaching people like Bryce Sable, you know, people who were making sci-fi TV shows. I wonder. I'm just saying, this guy probably got a similar offer, right? Like, this guy probably thinks he's cool. Like, you remember how, like, Tom DeLonge sounded, like, giddy? Like, he was like, oh, we're gonna make you look cool. Like, I feel like I'm getting a similar vibe from this guy. Like, he, yeah. Like, he's, either, yeah, I feel like it's like how I described. It's some shit like that. Like, I definitely think that, like, he's basically picked up where Tom DeLonge and Lou Elizondo have left off. Like, he's like the next step. You know, like, they burned the credibility of Tom DeLonge and Lou Elizondo, so they had to, this is the next guy.
And years later, when I was working with him on Ready Player One, and I was on set and watching him direct in person, you know, just a few feet away, watching him construct scenes and you know, put a story together and do his thing, I was just super inspired to want to direct something after years of producing. And when I started thinking about what that would be, it kept coming back to this doc that I always wished existed. So that was sort of, you know, simply put, there would be no age of disclosure without the age of Steven Spielberg. That's for sure.
So he's doing Disclosure Day, it's timing, but it's also timing, I want to say, in the zeitgeist. Because it feels like this was the area of sort of conspiracy theories and, you know, the edge, the periphery.
Yeah.
And now, I would say partially at least, due to your film, you have the government actually having disclosures and having data dumps, a lot of it heavily redacted, and we can get into what are they giving us, but at least they're giving us something. And politicians are willing to go on the record, like Rubio, I was very surprised, but like on the record, and which they haven't been because of this ridicule phenomenon, which I want to get into later. That's more let down the line. But how did you get some of the big names to come up and be public about that they know that these things are happening, that they're aware of the information, and to go on record?
Yeah. So when I first decided I wanted to try to make this film, a film.
I don't think DeLong. I don't know. For some reason, DeLong stepped back. I don't really know why. I think probably because they took money from investors and shit when they did To the Stars Academy. So he was basically like a pump and dump based type thing, I guess. But Elizondo, I think, he made a fool of himself, like trying to, give presentations about fake UFOs and whatnot. But, like, not to mention that, like, people looked up his background. Since he's been in the public eye, people have looked into him, and it's, like, incredibly suspicious. He's, like, basically, like, he's the guy who would have a job that was, like, disinformation for, like, a legacy program, I think is what I've heard speculate about. Like, he's out there to lie about all this other shit to deflect from, like, deep state legacy projects. Everyone only thought of the typical green alien coming out of a flying saucer in the 90s.
That would be the most credible doc ever made on the topic.
I think the starting point for both X-Files and Dark Skies is, Roswell was real, MJ-12 is real, right? There's been a cover-up ever since, right? Like, that's the basic premise, which, again, aligns with basically every single whistleblower that's come forward in the past 80 years, People have been writing about this since the beginning. It's not new. It's just like,
I got some introductions to a few intelligence officials who had worked on this topic for the U.S. government, and spent months getting to know them, earning their trust. Amongst those was Jay Stratton, who was the director of the U.S. government's UAP task force, the largest whole government investigation ever of UAP and non-human intelligent life. And in these private meetings, I started sharing my vision for the age disclosure. And I learned in those conversations that the reason people like Stratton or Rubio hadn't gone and spoken out about everything they legally could is simply they never got presented the right forum to do it. None of them wanted to go and participate in some big streamer or movie studio's documentary because they knew it would be sensationalized. They would be intercut with random people. There's just so many ways that could go wrong for them, right? No one wanted to go on a single news program like a Fox or a CNN. The country's so bifurcated, and its point of views, like half the country watches one, half the country watches the other. Also, at most, you're gonna get 5 or 6 minutes. The anchor's not really gonna have any real understanding of the situation. The conversation will be all over the place. It's a very difficult arena to present these ideas, this information, and so they just really didn't have a way to do it. On top of that, none of them wanted to be the one guy out on a limb saying these extraordinary things and being subject to the pushback and the ridicule, right? There's a very real disinformation campaign that has sort of ruled the day over the last 80 years, and anyone who sticks their head up and starts to tell the public the truth gets repercussions. A lot of these people have had their lives in danger, a lot of them have their careers ruined, their reputations ruined, so no one wanted to be the one guy out on a limb being subject to that, right? And so when I started to learn the reasons why they had not stepped out the truth in the way that they could, I started presenting basically a solution to that. I started to socialize in this community of people that I would make this movie completely independently, would independently finance it. We'd make it in complete secrecy. Everyone would sign strict NDAs. I would make everyone who participates aware of who else is participating and what is being revealed, so there's no surprises. And we would keep it only people who have direct knowledge of this topic as a result of working for the U.S. government in some capacity, whether that's military, intelligence community, defense contractors. And so the bar would be there. They wouldn't have to worry about being intercut with some, dude from the History Channel. And no knock on the History Channel, but just this is a different thing, right?
Shout out to Ancient Aliens.
And it would be handled very seriously and incredible fashion.
Fantastic job.
And so, thank you. And so basically that sort of game plan caught wind, and I started getting passed around, eventually to senior senators like Rubio and Rounds and Gillibrand and people from the White House National Security Council, and it started to build momentum. And then a really interesting thing happened. Like at a point in this process, essentially my doc became the plan for disclosure. Wow. So people like Rubio, who were aware of a lot of information, and their teams around them, decided the way he would bring about disclosure is by participating in this documentary. And everyone knew that this was going to take time to put together.
Really?
I made this over the course of a few years in secrecy, but everyone felt like, it was worth, doing it right, taking the time to do it, and that this would be the way to bring about change. I was told early on that the release of the doc would be followed within a few months by presidential action, and that's exactly what happened. The movie came out November 21st, 2025, and on February 19th, Trump issued a presidential directive instructing all federal agencies to identify evidence of UAP and non-human intelligent life and to declassify it. And this process got put in motion.
To go into the complexity and nuance of it, Rubio, when you're talking to him, says, there's the government and there's the government. There's people who have had the job for 30 years. They're bureaucrats that don't feel they've seen guys like me come and go, and they don't feel that I have the need to know. There's presidents, there's other people that have been told they don't have the need to know. It's literally the definition, not to add conspiracy onto conspiracy, but it's literally the definition of a deep state. It's like, look, there are career technocrats, bureaucrats who are just making these decisions. So people are like, well, if the government knows, why doesn't the government tell us? Yeah. And Legacy Program, which starts as a CIA, Air Force, defense contractors, and the
Department of Energy.
Well, I got that, see, and I'm coming. But smartly, they do the Department of Energy. Why? Because they have all the Atomic Secret War Act things, so that they can keep it secret, and they can keep this. So there's the government and the government. So you've got these four agencies. What does the Legacy Program do? What was it designed to do? And tell me the beginning of it, because it was the start of the CIA and all that.
So a number of the interview subjects in my doc reveal that a program referred to as the Legacy Program has gate-kept this information for basically 80 years. And that program involves elements of the CIA. It's not the CIA as a whole, it's certain people within the CIA, certain elements within the Department of Energy, certain elements within the US Air Force, and then private defense contractors. So that means companies like Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman. And this program is, the people in my film explained, it's quarterbacked by the CIA. So they're like operational control. And all the other players serve certain purposes. So they explain that the Air Force is actually in control of field operations, like doing actual retrievals of crashed UAP, the ET, traveling them back to wherever they store them, So if a UAP, a UFO crashes, it would be elements of the Air Force that can go and retrieve it. They can also use other branches of the military special forces, like they can use a Navy SEAL team if they needed to, but they retrieve this technology. And then the Department of Energy plays the role of, first off, they're the experts on anything that gives off massive amounts of energy, but they also have a classification system that sits outside of the intelligence community's classification system and basically just can allow them to keep secrets easier, right? And then defense contractors, they play the role of the reverse engineering work to try to reverse engineer this technology because they've got all the best engineering, the private sector, the contractor world is where all the best engineers are, and the people who are, the best at identifying how this technology could work and then trying to reverse engineer it. So Rubio explains in the film how over the years, defense contractors have gotten a lot of control of the situation within that org chart, that organization known as the Legacy Program, because he breaks it down. He says, imagine you're a defense contractor and you're given some technology in the 40s that the government can't figure out. And there's a government overseer of this very secret project to figure it out. The contractor stays constant. They keep working on it. That government overseer, he retires or he dies. Another guy comes in. He knows the project exists, but he doesn't know the real origin, backstory of the program, doesn't know everything they've figured out. He's just aware it's there. Then that guy retires or dies. And then another guy comes in. Again, contractors staying constant. They're working away at this. They're aware of all the information.
Is he going to try to debunk it?
Then the third overseer, he doesn't even know the project exists. Then you jump forward to 50, 60 years, and the people who were in the position.
Even though the president would know who to ask.
You could go to the director of the CIA. Nowadays, the director of national intelligence, and ask them. And even that person may not know.
It's like, all right, kid, let me tell you the world works. And he's just very matter of fact, and he breaks down how, the truth is not only being kept from the public and Congress, but from sitting presidents. And he, as you mentioned earlier, he breaks down as how these career bureaucrats can sit there in these positions of power for 20, 30 years.
Rubio's going to be
CIA
assassinated.
or Department of Energy or the Air Force. They're unelected bureaucrats, and they can just gatekeep information, and they have this attitude of, well, we can just wait out any administration. So that's what's happening right now, even following President Trump's directive. A lot of these federal agencies, they're not turning over the evidence they have, or they're just playing dumb and saying, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. There's no there.
Yeah, I liked one of your things, which is the Navy, and I've interviewed a couple of the pilots, but the Navy started having, we're having our pilots seeing these things, we're reporting them, we're recording them.
The controller told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
They're coming to bases, et cetera, and the Air Force, because it's part of the thing, are like, oh, no, what are you talking about? We're not seeing any of that stuff. And the Navy has more and more and more. Various different groups are seeing more and more, and the Air Force is saying, oh, nothing to see.
And it's been that way for a long time. So one of the pieces of evidence that was actually released just last week, this past Friday, 4 days ago, was a memo from 1948, internal memo from the U.S. Navy, where the commander of all naval operations was essentially instructing the entire naval force to be on the lookout for UAP, because there was an increase in flying saucer sightings at the time. And in the memo, it says that the head of naval operations is instructing everyone to report what they see, not up the naval chain of command, but to the Air Force. Right. And so you can just see how the system was put in place where hey, we're controlling the situation. We'll message out to all the other branches of the military, we've got this, and then they can get the information and they can lock it down.
So there seems to be a sort of fight where some people are saying, hey, look, these UAPs exist. Now, let's get back to that. When we talk about this stuff in the legacy program, this isn't like rumor, myth, and innuendo. These are the top government officials saying, yes, this exists, and yes, we have seen proof that this exists. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why it's happening now is people are saying, hey, our safety, our security, our sovereignty are being challenged by these entities that are UAPs they're not on any flight plan, they're not on anything. So we have to figure it out because, hey, this is a threat. Sane, right?
Yeah.
That's a good reaction for our politicians. They are then met with this resistance, the ridicule, the legacy program. So there seems to be a sort of internal war going on. Maybe explain.
Yeah, 100%. There's a tug of war happening behind the scenes. There's a number of officials who have learned the truth and want to make it a national priority. Those people have made it a national priority. They want to keep it a national priority, and they want to inform the public of the truth, right? Then there's people behind the scenes who are completely opposed to that. They think secrecy is the best path forward. They don't think the American public needs to know the full picture. They don't want to lose any control of the information they have now. In that arena, power comes from control of information, and the people who've been gatekeeping this, they don't want to lose the control and power they have. There have been some people who have been involved in keeping the secret legitimately think the public can't handle the full truth. I think my documentary shows people can, right? People aren't watching this movie and jumping out of windows, losing their minds. It makes them more curious. They want to know more. I think we can handle the truth. So I think that sort of battle's being waged in small private rooms right now. And then, people tend to mistakenly view the government as this big whole, all is one, right? As if it moves in lockstep. It doesn't. Even with a presidential directive to identify this evidence and declassify it, all of these gatekeepers within all these different silos of the national security kingdom, these 19, 20 agencies, they're all their own little kingdoms, right? And within those kingdoms, there's differing opinions too, There's people who keep secrets from their own colleagues within these federal agencies. So the process of getting the biggest secret of all time out of each of these is complicated and challenging.
People would say, well, that's one of the things, whenever it was brought up before, well, you think all these people are going to keep this secret, thousands and thousands of people, we can't keep any secrets, blah, blah, blah. A. B, I don't think people understand, you could keep a secret if it was for national security or national secrets, or a war or something, which a lot of people are like, well, China has stuff, we have so much I want to get into. The stuff isn't just coming to us, it's going to other people, and they're reverse engineering.
It's a big part of it.
A big part of it. A big part of the rhetoric. However, to go back to your point, the biggest story that that we're trying to break here, why? Because the minute someone says, or unequivocally we say, here's the UAP, the actual physical one, or here are the biologics, or here's something, whatever. That's okay, what is God? Was God alien? Like, how long have they been coming here? How long have they been living among us? What's the technology? Because if you look at humankind, it goes like this, and then World War II, we're splitting atoms and we're going to the moon, we're doing all these things. And you're like, wait a second, we had this, everyone was riding a horse, and then boom, all of a sudden we've got spaceships, And so what does that mean? You know what I mean? And so to me, the reason why I'm interested in it is if you break the story, then it becomes interesting. So first of all, there's, well, why did you keep it from us for so long? And you can tell why, because they're like, well, the fabric of religion, of law, of our shared history goes out the window. Also, there's the haves and the have-nots. So if we have the technology, maybe the Russians, maybe.
Well, we know that's one of the big things revealed. One of the big things revealed in the documentary is that the people that have been gatekeeping this information, they've also been involved in a high-stakes secret Cold War race with adversarial nations like China and Russia to try to reverse engineer this technology of non-human origin. And people in my film refer to it as the Manhattan Project on steroids. Here, the stakes couldn't be higher. Right? We won the atomic race. We built the bomb first. We used it to end World War II, and we became essentially the dominant superpower for the next 100 years. Right? Is all a ripple effect of that. Right? And multiple people in my film said they articulated it as whoever wins this race will be the leader for the next century. Because at the core, this technology is a new energy source. It's the key to interstellar travel. It's the key to, it's a solution to the energy crisis, right? Also, it can be used to make the most destructive weapon of mass destruction ever.
Yes. So you can understand why there are gatekeepers of the information saying, like, we need the technology, A, B,
So with the race, though, here's the two sides. So the people who want secrecy, they say we should not tell the public what we know and don't know, because then we're also telling our adversaries what we know and don't know. Right. And they just religiously believe that is the best path, right? Then you have people on the other side saying that made sense in the early days of this process during the Cold War, but that doesn't make sense now because it's gone so far that the average scientist doesn't even know it's real. They don't know it's a valid area of inquiry. How can we win a technology race when 99% of the scientists in our country don't even know it's a valid area of inquiry?
Who wins? Like, what happened? Is there going to be? We talked about the age of disclosure. We talk about disclosure dates. Is there going to be disclosure?
I think the people that are lobbying for more transparency are going to win. I just think it has too much momentum. I think it's going to play out over the next year or two. But
what do we find out?
I think we're going to get to a point where the government acknowledges the retrieval of technology of non-human origin and the fact that we're in this high stakes technology race. I think we're going to get there. It's going to take a while, and I'm not sure whether whether the big moment we build up to will be this presidency or the next presidency, but I think we're on the path to that happening.
You talked about sort of forgiveness or leniency or amnesty.
Yeah, so that's a big thing happening right now. A number of the people that have been involved in gatekeeping this information and involved in the cover-up, they've told senior members of Congress and senior members of the intelligence community in confidential settings that they're afraid to come forward with what they know because they fear the repercussions. They fear that they will be held accountable, worried about going to jail, or worried about having their careers ruined. And so there's a brewing support inside of even the White House right now to offer amnesty to these people. And some senior members of the cabinet are actually messaging this to the intelligence community that they're not looking to punish anyone, it's not a witch hunt, and that they can offer protections to people who come forward. And so I wouldn't be surprised if sometime in the near future we see another presidential directive to offer blanket amnesty. I think that's kind of where certain members in Congress are trying to push it to go to that place. So it's very well known, and there's no doubt about it. It's a presidential directive. If you have information about this cover-up, you can come forward and you won't be punished. I have heard some members of the cabinet are trying to put a clock on that. So it's like, if you come forward in the next 6 months and tell us what you know, you won't be punished, no matter what you were involved in, right? But if you don't, and we find out after, then you will be held accountable.
Right. And what do you think? Okay, let's say there's amnesty, and let's say some of the sort of deepy statey kind of people come out, and there is real disclosure. What kind of things do we find out?
I mean, I think, look, a number of the people in my film reveal that they have learned that there have been retrievals of crash craft of non-human origin. In many cases, there were non-human bodies in those crash sites. Biologics. And they were also retrieved. And so I think the most we can hope for is an acknowledgement that that's been happening, that we know we're not alone. The government has kept it secret for many years for what they believed were valid reasons, and now there's a level set happening. I think that's the most we could hope for. I think that we could also hope that they're honest about the technology race that's happening right now with Russia and China, so that we can put the right resources towards it. A lot of people in my film talk about the space race and how, in hindsight, maybe we wouldn't have won the space race if Kennedy didn't step to the microphone and do that big speech he did at Rice University, where he made it clear to the average American that, first off, getting to the moon was a realistic thing, right? That's possible, because in the context of that time, there's probably a lot of people in America that think
we couldn't get out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, but also like your average person in Middle America at the time, you tell them humans can get to the moon. That just sounds bonkers, right? So like you had a president step to the microphone and say, yes, that's a valid thing we can achieve, and we're gonna make it a national priority. And then he articulated why it was important that it stay a national priority and that we win. He says, I think this is almost word for word. Kennedy said, space technology, like nuclear technology, has no conscience of its own. It's up to mankind whether it's used for good or evil. And that's why he believed it was imperative the U.S. play a role in leading in space so that the technological progress and breakthroughs that come from it can be used for the betterment of mankind and not to create a new sea of war. And that's how he articulated it. And you watch that speech, you're like, okay, this all makes sense. Like, let's make it a national priority. Let's go, And it got brought up in a lot of my interviews and my private conversations as a reference point of what needs to happen here. There needs to be a level set where the American public is told, this is a real situation, these are the stakes, this is why it's important we're focusing on it, and we put resources towards it. And that could lead to so many amazing breakthroughs. Rubio, this isn't in the film, but in our conversation, he went on for a few minutes about how the space race had a single mission, get to the moon, right? But off the back of it, there were thousands of inventions that were discovered. And breakthroughs that impacted our everyday life in many ways. And his point was, we don't know what's going to come off the back of taking this more seriously and making it a national priority. We might solve, the short-term questions, but we might also discover things that could prove unbelievably revolutionary in the long term. And so, I actually found it really relieving that people at his level were thinking about it like this and being so thoughtful and prioritizing the bigger picture. Even though it wasn't a hot topic that like his voters were pushing him to focus on, he knew it was important. And there was a lot of people throughout my interviews that articulated that. And I think it's a lucky break that he ended up in the position he is now, where after, while I was still finishing the film, he became Secretary of State and National Security.
Maybe he's the next president and we do get disclosure. Yeah. I mean, look, to go back to you, like you're saying it's the biggest story out there, which, I mean, it's the biggest story out there on steroids, because it starts so many other stories. And like the 69 Kennedy, moon landing, it's still part of our cultural zeitgeist, because now you're seeing a series like Star City, which is if Russia had got there first, and you're like, hold on a second, this happened when I was born, like the year I was born. Like, it's still part of our zeitgeist, and the fact that to the victor go the spoils, and we won, and what would have happened if Russia would have won? That's 1/10, 1/1,000,000th of what would happen. That's what I love about your film, is because finally it seems that people in power, that the highest form of the highest government, including presidents, are saying, yes, this is true. So I want to get to this, which is the nuance of it. So you have Obama sitting there saying, yeah, you're talking to Clinton, or you have footage from Clinton. Obviously Trump is doing the sort of data dumps. But it's still, like, we're sitting here having this discussion as if it's a fait accompli. But I'd say 90% of the people who are on their own, maybe more, are saying, well, it's not proven.
Yeah, it's gonna be a process. Like that's why I called the movie The Age of Disclosure, because it wasn't the moment of disclosure. It's this age, this process. I knew disclosure would be a process. It's gonna have a lot of milestones, and it's gonna have a lot of pushbacks and hurdles. But in the end, I think 20 years from now we'll look back and it'll be this relatively small period of time.
I do wonder about
disclosure period where this all
related to
the truth came out, and the public went through the process
People didn't believe it.
of accepting it and challenging it, and then getting to the point where they just accepted it as reality. And all major cultural changes have required that. I mean, if you make a short list of all the major cultural changes that have happened in America, from women's rights to all civil rights movement, any kind of change there's a moment where it's a process, but then you get to the other side, and I think we are going to get there, and I think it's okay that a lot of people, the average people, watch something like The Age of Disclosure and like makes them sit up straight in their chair and like, okay, this seems very real and serious, but I still have all these questions. That's fine, and I think it's important we all hold the government accountable and make them provide more of the answers, But I do think we will get there, and now you see an acceptance in the scientific community as well. That's a sea change that's happening. I read like a week ago, I really can't remember which university it was, but some university was the first to put a class around UAP and this situation. I think we'll start to see that. I think it'll get into academia and it'll get more into the scientific community.
So we're in Hollywood. You made a very famous Hollywood film, Ready Player One. Hollywood, to go back to the ridicule, has been sort of inspirational on one side, the ETs and science fiction as a genre, Close Encounters. Bang, bang, bang. Bing, bang, bang. No, I got it wrong. Anyways, but also Hollywood has been used for the ridicule. Hollywood has been used to say, look, it's just fake. It's been made up. It's been.
Some of the people in my film, in my documentary, they go on the record saying that early in the history of this topic, in the late 40s, early 50s, the CIA, as a way to prevent people from looking into it and asking questions, they created this cultural stigma, this idea that, you're kooky if you look into this. If you say you saw, something otherworldly, you must be out of your mind. You'll have your career ruined, your reputation will be ruined. They put that out into the culture in a very manipulative way, essentially like a very sophisticated disinformation campaign.
Yes.
And
sophisticated disinformation campaign against the American people.
Some folks in Hollywood
going on
were
for quite some
tasked
time.
with creating content that would make this topic look silly and undermine it. Yeah. Who knows if they even knew, how they were being used, But the result was the
How ironic.
this
He's
disinformation
doing the
campaign
same
over the years,
thing
and then you
now.
get to the point where, before the age of disclosure came out, I think the average American still just thought this was all nonsense, right? Rubio and some of the Navy fighter pilots talk about in the film how up until recently there wasn't enough of a reason for a sitting senator or a senior fighter pilot to speak up about what they saw because they'll be subject to the stigma. Sure. And so one of the big objectives for the documentary for the people who participated was to put a nail in the coffin of the stigma and really just end it once and for all and make people realize that that's insane. It's like questioning whether terrorism is real, right? It's like you wouldn't even have that thought.
Yeah,
everyone is saying yes, it's real. Yes, it's real. But I would
that?
still say that the majority of the people don't believe it. The people who have seen the evidence, the people who have seen the documents or have seen they're going on the record and saying it. Yet we still don't believe it.
I think there's a sea change happening. I really do. There was a CBS News put out a survey like a week ago. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like overwhelming majority of people they surveyed believed A, we're not alone in the universe, and B, that the U.S. government knows more than they've told us. Right. And I think there's a sea change happening.
You said it's an age because it's going to take some time, but like we had JFK dump. Nothing really came out. A lot of heavily redacted stuff. Epstein files. A lot of redacted stuff. And then here, like everyone's waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's just redacted and redacted and redacted. And Vice back in the day was very, very good at FOIA, and we're sort of FOIAing some stuff now. But it's definitely the hardest.
You're not going to get anything good, man.
The sort of best kept secret.
And FOIA can't get everything because a lot of what's been covered up has been moved to the possession of defense contractors. Those are private companies. You can't FOIA Lockheed Martin, right? And the Department of Energy has its own classification system that's not very easy to FOIA. It's basically the same classification system that's used to guard nuclear secrets. Right. So there's not a process for the average person to file a FOIA and get nuclear secrets, right? Sure. So so it's difficult to get to through FOIAs. But I think also what's happening right now, I think there are still some people within the White House that want to put this secret back in a box and bury it for another 80 years. They don't want to deal with it.
Well, let's get into that because there's some really interesting stuff in the doc. One is the sort of oblong or not oblong, squarish, rectangular, matte black, large Walmart, super Walmart that go over military bases or over atomic sites or missile sites on both sides. And I believe at some point Russia and America had to have some sort of treaty about this because we've been, there's been many, I don't know what to call them, probes or checking us out, or I don't know. Or you could maybe explain a little bit about that. And this is a two-parter. Reverse engineering weaponry and or all this stuff. So China and their position in that, because it was Russia and America, but now China.
A number of the people in the documentary revealed that there has been ongoing UAP activity over our nuclear sites and our military sites, sensitive military sites, since the late 40s. And there's a lot of focus on our weapons of mass destruction. And what's been witnessed is pretty extraordinary. Everything from orbs to crafts to giant crafts. We're in Malibu right now, and just up the coast, about 2 hours, is Vandenberg Air Force Base over near Santa Barbara. And in the documentary, a couple Air Force security guards who have the job of guarding missile silos on this super classified base, they went on the record talking about an event that happened not that long ago where a giant UAP came off the coast and over Vandenberg, and half a dozen Air Force security guards all stood there looking up at this extraordinary thing, and then they witnessed it shoot off at thousands of miles an hour up the coast. Like a giant, they described it as a giant matte black craft the size of a football field. No windows, no visible means of propulsion, no lights. And
if that was ours, they would tell them not to talk about it.
And so there's been a lot of activity, and it's consistently been reported over the years.
Aren't they saying too that there's a possibility that the orbs that they're seeing more and more that move and they can go into the water and they can go in and go into space and they can do this and they move with they defy all the physics, that there's one possibility that they are from a foreign nation, but they've had reverse engineering because they've got some technology, and that's one of the theories. which leads to, okay, if we're going to defend ourselves, shouldn't we know the truth?
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the big drivers for disclosure is this Cold War technology race, right? There's a fear that if we don't, Rubio literally says this in the film. Yeah. He basically says if we can get our act together as a nation and take this more serious and put more resources towards it, we're going to wake up one day and we're going to find out that China got there before we did. And by got there, he means fully reverse engineered this technology. And he says, and we won't know how they got there or when they got there, but we'll be screwed. October. And so there's a fear of that, you know. He also articulates how throughout American history, the greatest intelligence failures have come from a lack of imagination. The idea that like an adversary can't do something just because we haven't experienced it yet or seen it. And he makes a couple great analogies, like Pearl Harbor. We didn't think they could attack us, get our their torpedoes through the straits and hit us, but then they figured out how to do it, and Pearl Harbor happened. 9/11, we never imagined terrorists would fly to the homeland and learn to fly commercial airlines and then use commercial airplanes in a terrorist attack until they did.
Our lack of imagination hurt us.
Yeah, lack of imagination hurt us, and so he doesn't want that to happen on this front. So that's a big driver here, which is like we need to be ahead of this. Seems pretty reasonable, you know, and I think what's also happening is that's getting support because whether you can wrap your head around the fact that this is not human intelligence or not, the fact that there are aircraft in our most sensitive restricted airspace that are not ours, and we don't know exactly whose they are and what their intention is, that alone is a problem. That alone requires, attention.
That's enough.
That's
right
it.
There, yeah.
And so
I'm sorry. Then that's admitted to the highest levels. That's generals, presidents, senators.
Rubio says it on camera. He's literally the second most, arguably the second most powerful guy. He's the national security advisor and the secretary of state at the same time. It's happened once in U.S. history with Henry Kissinger in the late 70s for 2 years. No one else in American history has had both those jobs at the same time.
And he's saying that.
That's what he's
every
saying.
year.
It brings up every question. What do you think?
They had to shut down fucking Wright
happens?
Patterson last
close your eyes and be
year.
like, okay, what happens after
They had to
there
shut
is-
down. They had to shut down Bradshaw Air Force Base while they were fucking using it to send shit to Iran. Because the fucking thing showed up and were just hovering over the runways. Happens at their bases all around the world too.
Disclosure.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it changes everything. I think academia and the science community start treating this like a valid area of inquiry and putting their bandwidth towards it and their resources towards it. Much more money starts going towards it, and then that's when breakthroughs happen. It's just like every other aspect of our life. All the medical breakthroughs we see happening. Why? It's because brain power and money was put towards it, right? Why have we fought back against terrorism so effectively? Because after 9/11, we threw a ton of money and resources at counterterrorism. We literally created the Director of National Intelligence position to organize the intelligence community more. Congress appropriated a silly amount of money towards every imaginable counter-terrorism measure they could come up with, right? So, when you apply brain power and money and make something a national priority, you see great results. That's what happens. So I think we'll see tremendous results. And this technology, if it's used correctly, could revolutionize the way we live. It could solve the energy crisis. Could change the way we all rely on oil and gas. It could expand horizons in that it could lead to interstellar travel. It would no longer be about these very conventional space exploration efforts that are happening right now. It would change everything. Now, at the same time, that technology could be used to create weapons of mass destruction. And so there's a humanitarian issue to navigate, right? Like to make sure that this information is shared with the world in a responsible way. You can't also, basically be telling bad actors how to make, weapons of mass destruction in their garage. So, but, we've handled that with nuclear technology. Like there's, not everyone knows everything about that. Some stuff is kept secret. And so there's undoubtedly a responsible way to roll this out and change everything. But one thing I want to circle back to, orbs. There's been all kinds of UAPs seen over the years. There's been crafts that look like flying saucers. There's been orbs, aerospace vehicles that look like Tic Tacs. They're like big lozenge-shaped, white, round, smooth. They describe them as Tic Tacs. But the orbs specifically, they're not a new thing. They've been seen since World War II. Allied pilots were reporting seeing orbs flying next to their airplanes, and they describe them performing evasive maneuvers as if they were intelligently controlled. They describe them, moving in line with the airplanes. Like it's a very real thing. There's tons of documentation of it. Even astronauts in some of the early space missions reported seeing orbs out the window in space.
Makes sense.
So I think the idea that those are made by an adversary or anyone in America is completely bananas, because the last 100 years wouldn't have played out the way it did if that was the case. First off, we wouldn't have stayed in World War II. We would have won World War II in an instant, right? And if it was another country, they would be the dominant country on the planet right now. So I don't think there's anyone in a leadership position in the United States government right now that thinks orbs are man-made.
Dude,
what is the prevailing consensus of what they are? Are they like probes watching us, or?
There's a few different opinions. Some people think they're sensors from somewhere else. They're like advanced sensors.
Dude, she had
probes.
some wild ass takes, dude. She said that the the fucking Nazis and the Dracos teamed up after World War II, you know, like the lost Nazi colony, and then they defeated the Allies, and that's what 1952 was. They flew over DC. You know, that was like their victory parade. And then they've had like reptilians running the fucking, you know, global institutions ever since. I mean, yeah, she's fucking, I mean, look, I'm trying to be nice, because I don't know, maybe that's true. I mean, it would make sense. Certainly undigestible. You know, like, I don't think, that doesn't really sound like what's been hinted at over the years from like the likes of Tom DeLonge and this guy, Rubio or whatever. But then again, like, if the truth is that like you are completely cucked to some fucking reptilian overlord, Nazi reptilian overlord situation, I mean, I could see why you would want to put out these types of stories. I mean, like I said, I don't see how that couldn't be true. Like, there's no immediate deal breakers. Like I always say, it's like there could be, or we could have global supply chains that are geared around feeding something to some fucking, you know, NHI overlord that we don't even know about. Like, it would totally be possible for us to be doing something that we don't know, you know, other than just the loosh. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, I listened to her on Matt Beal's podcast today, and like, I was trying to think of like where she got it from. Like, she would cite specific people who I don't know. Probably like weird, sketchy, you know, like UFO speakers, authors. I kind of think it's like she was like, I think it's like in the sort of like new agey type circles, it's like a lot of them have the idea that like Ike was like the bad guy, and I feel like what she wanted to do was try to find a way to like exonerate him. So she has this complex, like incredibly complicated, like eschatological belief structure. And it's just like, I mean, it puts you in a weird headspace if you imagine the world like that. It's unclear if she actually believes what she says. But yeah, no, she says that the U.S. lost to the Nazis and Dracos. And that her great-grandfather did nothing wrong.
Some people think they might be, as extraordinary as it sounds, another form of life that has existed alongside us. And we just didn't know about them.
I don't know who she's
and then some people think
for.
that they are transportation vehicals, that there's actually something else inside them.
Yeah.
You know, in my film, some of the leading scientists on this reveal how they figured out how UAP work and how they're creating an immense amount of energy in a localized area, and they're creating essentially a bubble around a craft, and it allows them to operate the way they do.
I mean, that's why I say, like, could that be true, right? Like, say there was some Nazi mad scientist who figured out how to do flying saucer shit, took off at the end of the war, wound up in fucking Antarctica, and then the Vulcans, or, you know, someone like the Vulcans showed up, and they were like, ooh, we saw that you were doing flying saucer shit from space. Would you like to join our global Draco Federation alliance? And then the Nazi guy was like, yeah, no. And then, you know, whatever weird breakaway Nazi thing that was. And then maybe like later on somebody else showed up and they were like, "Oh, we saw that you broke in the war. You are flying saucers. Oh, would you like to join the Global Federation? The Galactic Federation. Oh." And then the Draco Nazis were like, "Kill them, kill them, kill them, kill them." So that's what's been going on. That's been going on for the past 75 years or whatever. Like the good guys are trying to contact humanity and be like, "Oh, join our federation, we're good guys, oh." And then the Nazi Dracos are just like fucking attacking them aggressively. Like, "Get off our planet, we saw it first. We've already laid eggs in the nether regions. Oh, this is our planet. Oh, we are Dracos, ah." I mean, it could be true. That could be true. That could totally be true.
Basically, the bubble separates the craft from the environment around it, so our environment has no impact on it. That's why these things can be transmedium. They can go from space to air to water seamlessly.
We know that they were pretty advanced.
Inside the bubble, they might be going one speed, but to us, it looks like they're going another speed.
I forget where they were.
That technology also, because of how much energy it's giving off, it would make the craft appear very bright. Yeah. So some people have applied that same thought to the orbs and
Draco's
said,
a reptilian.
Maybe that's just the harnessing of an immense amount of energy in a small localized area. And that's why we see this bright orb. But inside it, there might be a craft that's 50 feet wide.
Right.
There might be a being in there. Or it might be something that no one's imagined.
There was a big mathematical, so to get a bit more metaphysical, recently we're sort of upsetting math and laws of physics by saying, 90% of the universe is dark energy, dark matter, because the gravity wasn't enough, and therefore, if there's dark energy and dark matter, then we go into quantum physics and quantum computing, which is there's infinite possibilities and infinite universes and all this stuff. Okay, where I'm getting to is we're just sort of coming out of the pond to look at this stuff. Isn't there a school of thought thinking that to go back to the math, it's mathematically more possible that we're in some sort of simulation than the only planet that's ever sort of had evolution and water and single cell amoebas and all this stuff. Okay, there's one that's interdimensional. There's maybe they're humanoids from the future, or maybe it's they're coming back in time. Maybe explain a little bit about that.
So I think one of the big questions, once you accept the fact that this is real,
interdimensional,
non-human life, intelligent life exists and has been here and most likely is
non-human in its present stage.
Yeah. So once you accept that, then origin, where are they from, becomes the next big question.
Nice guy. Listen to
I don't think there's anyone alive who knows for sure the answer to that.
Sure.
But I think the possibilities include extraterrestrial, obviously, from some other planet. Interdimensional is something that is talked a lot about amongst people in our military intelligence community and government as a possibility. And then the third being another life form that's existed here on Earth the entire time, and we just were not aware, which is totally a possibility. So we discover new things about Earth all the time.
But to interrupt, I loved maybe the most esoteric and weird guy that you had in the documentary is the head of naval cartography of the
Admiral Tim Gallaudet. He talked about how 70-something% of the planet is ocean, and we have barely mapped the bottom of our oceans. He makes an analogy. He says we've mapped the surface of the moon in more detail than we have the surface of the bottom of our own oceans. And then it closes his point by saying, if I was a more intelligent species from somewhere else and I came here and I wanted to hide from humanity, the most obvious place to do it is in our oceans. And that's really interesting because a lot of the activity is seen over our oceans. And for 80 years, people have been reporting seeing UAP coming in and out of the ocean.
And the technology argument, because it's like they can go into the water and they can do this, and if they were conventional, it would displace X amount of water, or there's no way it could do this, or it'd be
he can't keep the same speeds.
Can't keep the same speeds and all this stuff. And so that's
There's also reports of activity under the water.
Yeah.
From submarine commanders who, off the record, tell people in the intelligence community, something went by the submarine at hundreds of miles an hour. We don't have anything.
Yeah, because they have the most sophisticated sort of sensors and listening devices. And wasn't there a thing? And you have to. I think he's a naval pilot, and he said, we swapped out our radar from this.
Each dragon.
So fighter pilots in the Navy specifically this was about 10 years ago, they upgraded their radar systems. So they started seeing more stuff on the radar
Many-colored land?
that they couldn't see before because they didn't have the right
Really?
tools to see it, right? And from that point on, it became, I think the words he used, he said it became ubiquitous. Like, we're seeing these things every single day. And we're contending with them as like just a set of circumstances that are there all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, that's another interesting thing. Like, you know, as we evolve technologically, we create instruments and devices that allow us to see things we couldn't see before, you know? And that's not just about this topic, it's all topics. Like, that's how medical science works too, right? We develop new tools and they inform us of things we didn't know about. So it's highly likely that we're dealing with a form of life.
He's not debunking at all. Dude, Vice's pill? Really? Did you see this? Look at this. Look at this. Plus 17 versus plus 4. Look, President Lukashenko warned 2 days ago that Israel that they need to seriously evaluate their actions in the genocide they're committing in Gaza. Yesterday, Israeli MFA called Lukashenko's comments vile and anti-Semitic. Today, a bus full of Belarusian children was targeted with a Ukrainian drone. I mean, it's good. It's good. I mean, if I was a lib, though, I'd be like, oh, well, that's because politicians have to hard work. They're hated. Blah, blah, blah. They have to, you know, they got a job to do. DSA are just fucking bougie activists. Blah, blah, blah. You know? That's what I would say is simplest here. And we go, oh, they're just bougie activists. The libs are mad about it, from what I can tell. Yeah. Do we even need to talk about the Indonesia thing? That looks fake as fuck. They like knock down the fence, start a fire, and like attack cops like instantly with no provocation. Suspicious. Look, should we watch this Mike from PA video? Is it good? I've never watched this shit before. We watched too much Breaking Points.
Mike, the Peter Thiel leak is huge news, very worth coverage. Leak exposes members of Peter Thiel's secretive dialogue society. More of the 200 of the world's elites registered for a retreat whose agenda runs from panels on cult building and sex to prepping for World War III. An associated app offers matchmaking.
This is an AI-generated narration.
I was so hopeful. A trove of internal records from a secret society for powerful figures in U.S. politics, finance, and tech was left exposed online. A group called Dialogue. Oh my god. There's such fucking dorks. The group called Dialogue is a private invitation-only organization co-founded in 2006 by the billionaire tech investor Peter Thiel. It convenes U.S. officials, foreign government figures, and Silicon Valley executives at off-the-record annual retreats. I'm beaming something to everybody's head. Do you get it? Are you guys getting it? A directory of the website's code was first revealed by Swiss hacktivist Maya Arson Prime W.
He doesn't know how to do it right. Yeah.
Rather than possibly going into a depression rather than having your favorite president be Herbert Hoover.
You're not
I
supposed
was
to
always
groan
the
like
one
that.
I didn't want to be. I didn't want to see economic catastrophe. If you kept this going, that could have happened. But all I know is every time we talked about the possibility of peace,
Today's the day he
stock
became
market
president.
shot up like a rocket ship. It never went down. They didn't like it. The people, the stock market is more brilliant than anybody there is, including the people on this stage, other than me, of course.
That
fucking
is
hippie.
the person who represents
dude.
all of us Americans on the world stage. That was Donald Trump on the world stage yesterday, rambling, insulting his own cabinet, praising the stock market, confessing that his foreign policy is driven by the stock market's reaction to it, and importantly for this conversation, admitting that more than anything else, he does not want to go down as Herbert Hoover.
He is Herbert Hoover.
War caused an economic calamity.
Oh my
Fear
god, dude,
that
Israel's
he
gonna
said
fuck you so
people
hard
has
now,
pushed
Trump.
him to reach
You're
a
gonna
deal
get
to
it,
finally
dude.
end his wildly unpopular war
Oh,
with
man.
Iran without any geopolitical or strategic gains for the United States of America.
This
But
lady knows that too.
4 months
She's
into
not
that
saying
war,
it.
there's a devastating new poll out today that shows Donald Trump's economic approval rating has hit a remarkable new low, with a large majority of the country dissatisfied with
Yeah,
him
but
on
the
the
stock
economy.
market-
1/3 of Americans say they approve of how Trump
A
is handling the
third.
economy. That's lower than his predecessor, President Joe Biden, was at any point. That's lower than Donald Trump was at any point in his first term, including the COVID pandemic. Overall, just 36% of Americans approve of how Donald Trump is handling his job as president. I want to bring in Democratic pollster and political analyst Cornell Belcher. John Howman is back with us. Cornell, I'm like running out of the will to ask insightful
Americans
questions.
disapprove
I
of
mean,
his
what?
pedophilia.
WTF? I mean, I don't even know what to say about what Donald Trump says anymore about not wanting to be Herbert Hoover, revealing that the stock market is stronger than his cabinet in his view. Maybe that's why he asked another world leader
said
about
smarter.
going to war with Iran. But the truth is found anytime you go shopping for anything, whether you do like your family's big, fill the fridge shopping, or whether you run in to get something you forgot for dinner. Everything is a whole lot more expensive. And even if gas prices come down, you've been paying so much more for so many months now. People are already changing their summer plans. What does the pro-democracy side, the Democratic Party, do with that?
Well, Democrats
first of
are
all,
pro-democracy.
don't you often wonder during those press conferences? I always find myself watching Secretary Rubio, and because you always say Rubio.
Who's this
what's
fucking
going on in
lady? You
Rubio's
suck,
mind
bro.
during these ramblings, and he just to me.
What are you showing for Rubio?
But picking up on that topic about the peace plan and that conversation, interview you just had, devastating interview you just had, laying out how problematic this war is. In that Fox poll, we have 64% of Americans who disapprove of the war.
Cornell Belcher.
So it's not really the one thing; it is the tie. It is the economic thing,
Yeah.
but it's also all these other things that are just weighing it down. And I think it really becomes, he's been stripped bare, because now it's not just independence. Look, 64% of independents disapprove. Right? You
Nice
have the vast
Obama
majority of
poster.
independents approve. But what I think is
Doofus.
remarkable in the new polling that's out over the last couple of days, Nicole, is look, Trump won non-college white voters by better than 30%. He won rural voters by better. His job on the economy is now underwater with both of those sets of voters.
Yeah.
And he just barely broke ahead in 2024 among suburban voters. And 60-some% of suburban voters now disapprove of the job that the president's doing. So it is not just cracking, but it's crumbling around it.
Yeah, I mean, Howman, I too wonder what Rubio, who got in a fight with Donald Trump about the size of his hands, is thinking when he stands there. But I think it has a whole lot to do with measuring the drapes in the Oval Office. But what do you?
Well, there's. He's thinking, Nicole, about whether he could top his own rhetoric earlier this week when he compared the UFC to America landing on the moon under John F. Kennedy. I think he's kind of trying to think up the next great rhetorical flourish that will guarantee.
Right, like, we got to do something about that 33.
In the White House.
Who needs USAID when you've got the UFC insulting former first ladies?
He's also sitting there thinking, "Thank God I'm not JD Vance."
To send him to Israel.
My God, just praise the Lord that I can stand back here quietly in the back and look like I'm on Ibogaine, like one of those very heavily dissociative hallucinogens that people take when they don't move for hours, where they're like stuck in one place like a tree trunk.
Shut up! You have no idea what you're talking about.
Basically saying, at least they're not fitting me for cement shoes like they are JD Vance.
Dude, none of this is funny.
What about the
Libs
economy,
are fucking
Highland?
pathetic, man. This is why no one likes you. Oh. So lame.
Yeah, and of course, who tried to assassinate him? Yeah, tried to assassinate John Bolton. Tried to.
What's going on?
I'm telling you what's going on.
They are really having quite a moment, aren't they? What's going on? The Iran peace deal has officially been signed as of yesterday evening, but how long-lasting is this peace? Well, we have some intelligence to indicate that our national sovereignty will once again be pushed to the limit by our greatest ally. First, we have video of President Donald Trump signing the deal with Iran last night to end the Middle East war at a candlelit dinner at the Palace of Versailles following the G7 summit, hosted by, you can see him sitting right next to President Trump there, the French President Emmanuel Macron. And this morning, we now know of the exact terms of this deal. This is a copy of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between Iran and the United States. I'm going to cover for you the highlights, starting with the first point here, very important, that Iran and the United States and its allies will immediately and permanently cease military operation on all fronts, including in Lebanon. Yes, we are talking about you, Israel. Another clause, point 5, very important, that the Strait of Hormuz will reopen with no charge for 60 days only, meaning that after 60 days, Iran would theoretically be able to, if they wanted to, charge a toll, which is a massive concession. Remember, ships were free to come and go as they pleased through the strait before February 28th, before we launched this war with Israel. Point 6, this is a big one right here, that the United States of America undertakes with its regional partners to develop a definitive mutually agreed plan with at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran, aka we are talking about reparations here. We're being told right now that this won't be taxpayer money, which could mean many different things, and I'm sure BlackRock will be chomping at the bit. So, not ideal. Point 7, this is a little hard to read, but it says that the United States of America undertakes to terminate all types of sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Another huge concession, because we have been waging economic war against Iran for decades. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that's what's been happening. We have not allowed them to trade with any of our allies, any of our trading partners, so they've had to resort to trading with the Russians and the Chinese. But it now looks like Iran is open for business, which Israel, I'm sure they're not too happy about. Next is no nuclear weapons, which is a little bit silly at this point, because all the intelligence that we had leading up to the war indicated that they had no nukes to begin with. And we also did that bombing operation, if you remember last year, where Trump declared that their nuclear facilities were entirely destroyed, and anybody who said otherwise is fake news. I mentioned sanctions before, but point 10 says that Iran will be now able to sell oil on the open market. Something, again, they weren't able to do before this war, so expect them to get much, much richer in the coming years. The last call out I want to make is point 11, which says the United States of America undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran upon implementation of this MOU. Another huge infusion of cash for the Iranians. Objectively speaking, the United States has lost this war. But we all sort of knew that this was the likely outcome prior to it starting, which is why every single sane person was like, please, Mr. President, please do not do this. Trump, of course, listened to Netanyahu instead of his own intelligence. So now, today, in all reality, this is the best possible outcome for the United States, bar us sending in ground troops or sacrificing tens of thousands of American lives to probably most likely eventually end up more or less with this deal that's being presented. And predictably, Israel and the entire Zionist media apparatus in the United States is having a bit of a meltdown today.
Yeah, and of course, who tried to assassinate him? Yeah. Tried to assassinate John Bolton? Tried to.
What's going on?
I'm telling you what's going on.
They are really having quite a moment, aren't they? What's going on? Finally, it seems like they're getting a taste of their own medicine and what the rest of us have been feeling since, I don't know, 1963. Here's Ben Shapiro on Fox.
With that said, this MOU appears to be, just from the text, a disaster that does not achieve any of the actual signal goals that were set by the administration at the beginning. There were effectively 5 goals that were set by the administration at the beginning. One was ending the nuclear program, not just nuclear weapons, no nuclear enrichment, zero enrichment. That is not in the deal. Ballistic missiles, and that is not in the deal. And the president today suggested that ballistic missiles should actually continue to be held by the Iranians because the Saudis, our allies, also hold ballistic missiles. Then you have the support of terrorism. That is not part of the deal. Anything that looks like an attempt to end terrorism. A permanent opening of the Strait of Hormuz toll-free. Not only is that not in the deal appears to have a provision allowing Iran and Oman to attempt to toll the strait after 60 days. And then finally, the idea that Iran would receive some sort of sanctions relief after all of those things happen. We are already seeing from day one relief in their ability to ship oil out of Iran. In my opinion, the Vice President of the United States, the chief negotiator on this particular project, has not well served the president.
It's funny how these guys always stick with President Trump, but as soon as he turns against Israel, it's like, what the heck is he doing? But if you notice, they're still deeply afraid to directly criticize him. Mark Levin, ultra Israel firster, suggested the other day that Congress must first approve this peace deal, which is utterly ridiculous. What, you can start a war without Congress, but you need Congress to end a war? The last one I'll play, because there's literally so many of these. We literally have hours of footage from just the last day or so, but this is Mike Huckabee, who I would say isn't so much the ambassador to Israel, but the ambassador from Israel. This is what he had to say.
It's also my job to represent the importance of Israel to the United States. This is just another reminder that it is your heritage, without a doubt. But minister, it is also the heritage of the United States. Without Israel, without the Jewish Foundation, there would not be an America. We owe our very existence to what happened in this land.
That's a new one, because I don't remember learning from even the Robert Maxwell Israeli spy McGraw-Hill textbooks that John Adams and Alexander Hamilton were writing about the Israelis in the Federalist Papers. I don't remember Thomas Jefferson mentioning Judeo-Christian values in the Declaration of Independence. And I certainly did not see the IDF fighting alongside George Washington in the Revolutionary War. Look, Israel is 78 years old. Donald Trump is 2 years older.
It's appropriate that we release the agreement, and we did send a copy to Israel, by the way.
We sent Israel a copy of the agreement. Oh, you sent them a copy, did you? You BCC'd them? We just reached the outline of a peace agreement with the country we are fighting with Israel without consulting Israel, bitch. That's exactly what that means. Shh. Adults are talking. At one point, he said, I just think it's just too much. I think going forward, we may leave the fight against Hezbollah to Jelani, who runs Syria. Now, Jelani, of course, is a former Al-Qaeda leader. He's just a more reasonable person. If you're looking for humane treatment of civilians, you got to go to the Al-Qaeda guy, not the Israeli prime minister. That's what the president said. It's unbelievable.
I mean, no notes. Chef's kiss. But could this be all a ruse? Right? We've seen peace deals fall through before. We've seen Trump lash out at Bibi before. Will this time be any different? Well, not if Netanyahu has anything to say about it. Why did Netanyahu just tweet this? In a work meeting with the head of Mossad.
From Axios, top White House officials believe New York Times reporters Maggie Aberman and Jonathan Swam obtained audio recordings of the Situation Room meetings for their new book. So my question is, where did they get this recording from?
The Israelis spy on the United States. They've always spied on the United States.
Do we spy on them also?
No. And that's written in stone at the CIA. We do not spy on Israel. But they openly spy on us.
So Clinton, right, with his Monica Lewinsky situation,
yes,
says Gordon Thomas, a Welsh journalist living in Dublin, claims that long before Kenneth Starr, he was the prosecutor on the Monica Lewinsky case, had ever heard of Monica Lewinsky. Israel's intelligence service was in possession of tapes containing 30 hours worth of intimate talk between President Clinton and his young intern. Thomas also asserts that Jerusalem was holding these tapes either for possible blackmail or to protect its mole in the White House, codename Mega. So like even before the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke,
they were already on them.
I think the Israelis are involved in leaking this transcript to these New York Times reporters. And then now they're putting it out in opportune time because
how they can blow up the peace deal.
I mean, it's an open secret at this point that Israel is spying on us. They've been doing it for decades. By the way, that was a short clip from my weekly podcast called The Today Show, where we get into all the ish from the week, so to speak. I will put a link in the description below if you want to subscribe, which I highly encourage. Thank you in advance for supporting the show. And that Monica Lewinsky thing, I haven't done a full dig on it. I think there's way more to the story. Maybe I should. Let me know what you guys think. But to my point of espionage, former Israeli intel officer Ari Ben-Manash is suggesting that Israel has got a few more tricks up their sleeves. Take a listen here.
If there's a real deal between the Americans and the Iranians, and it's going towards that, Netanyahu will try to sabotage it. One of the ways he'd sabotage it is by putting out Epstein material against U.S. government officials, including Trump. New material that wasn't seen before.
Remember, we have only seen a small percentage of the Epstein files. Some estimates say 30%, some say even less than that. A lot of it redacted due to national security. Right around the time of 9/11, we have a bunch of those files missing, which we have to wonder, what was that all about? Mark Levin has been out here saying the quiet part out loud, if you know what I mean. Take a listen.
But Israel has some very, very powerful weapons that it has not used. I don't know this firsthand. Just go online and read about it. It's a secret that's not so secretive. And they've had him for decades. Israel will survive. Period.
For a guy who wears this big American flag brooch right here typically, he certainly cares a lot about Israel. But, you know, to give him credit, good on him. At least he's willing to admit that Israel has nukes, whereas the rest of the mainstream media, including the Democrat-controlled outlets, are still running the same old Hasbara talking points distributed from Tel Aviv even today.
How do you characterize this kind of settlement other than the Iranians got what they wanted, the Americans didn't, and that's where we're going from here?
And then, Hagar, what does that mean for the Lebanese?
Yeah, it's a disaster, actually, in so many ways. So Tom mentioned here that the Israelis are now being held back. And it sounds, a lot of people, it sounds like a ceasefire would be a good thing, right? Normally that sounds like something you'd want in Lebanon or anywhere. But the fact is...
Yeah, normally ceasefire is, you know, you think of that as a very good thing. But in this situation, we need to continue to blow up civilian apartments for what reason?
Yeah, we need to fucking get
that's
their
what
ass.
I thought.
Yeah.
This notion that the Democrats are somehow anti-war,
That
wrong.
lady's a Democrat?
Just wrong.
Is that
They're
lady a
also
Democrat?
mostly bought and paid for by the Israeli lobby.
No way.
In fact, is the largest
quote-unquote Democrat. She's
is
like
Israel
Epstein. It's like,
because
I'm
their
not
leader
political.
Netanyahu would stand trial and likely go to jail once the fighting stops. This morning, it was reported
I'm
that
not
Israel
political.
bombed Lebanon again, even after the U.S.-Iran peace deal had already been signed. Israel does not want peace. They want perpetual war. They want to expand their territory. They want to achieve the Greater Israel Project. This is just breaking as I'm recording this video. Quote, Iran warns of the cancellation of all upcoming negotiations, reimposing the full Hormuz blockade and responding with missiles over the direct violation of the U.S.-Iran MOU's first clause, with Israel continuing military aggressions in southern Lebanon, including last night, despite explicit commitment from the first clause to end the war and guarantee Lebanese sovereignty. Iran explicitly rejects any theater from Trump about Netanyahu being rogue, and now Friday's Geneva meeting to launch the first round of 30-day technical talks between Vance and Ghalibaf is on hold over the violation, as no trip has been confirmed or scheduled just 24 hours after the MOU was signed electronically. It's day one, and Israel has already bombed Lebanon. Their media operatives are openly out there talking about invoking the Samson option, nuking the world, and their intelligence officers are out there threatening blackmail of Trump and other US politicians. We don't got to wait 60 days. It's time to stop this. We have to cut this off. We have to cut off all the funding to Israel. It's time to end all of the military cooperation we have with them, and it's time to halt the technology sharing, the data sharing, the intelligence sharing. Stop all of it. Our greatest enemy is not Iran, it's not Russia, it's not China. Our greatest enemy is Israel. That is it for me this week. What do you guys think? Is this peace deal legit? What do you think Israel has up?
What's something Greer's been wrong about, other than the one thing? Look, I like Greer because when he's wrong in the, like the ideologically, spiritually correct position. Like, he's generally, like, if he's wrong, it's because he's accusing the deep state of, like, worse crimes. I'm okay with that. It's okay. I'm okay with, like, over-exaggerating the crimes of the worst people in history, you know? I know, but, I mean, I think he's already been vindicated significantly. That's what I mean. Like, he said these things 20 years ago, and now, like, you have fucking Grush and whoever coming out backing them up. That's it, yeah. I don't know, like I said, he's the guy that the Congress did an investigation. I won't say the government. Congress, the first time somebody from outside the Pentagon had investigated any of these Pentagon activities. And they were like, okay, we need you to go fucking poke around with these black budget programs and see what you can find out. And he did, and he was like, oh, there's fucking dozens of people who said the same thing. They're running like a crash retrieval thing. They've been doing it for decades. It's really sketchy. Here's a number of like witnesses documenting that. It's like he's the guy who was tasked to look into it. And then he came back and said, here, this is what, it's true. And then they were like, oh, okay. They don't really know what to do with it, I don't really think. I think most of them just ignore it, and then the handful of people who are trying to take it seriously, I think, are stymied. Like, the shit that Trump's doing is pure theater, because none of these agencies are complying. But, like, Trump's not going to do shit about it. I mean, maybe Burleson will be able to do something? I don't know. I think, unless Trump is willing to like crack the whip a little bit with like the CIA and the Air Force and whoever else is sitting on this stuff. The FBI doesn't really seem to have a whole lot, but I think that they've been complying. The FBI and the Navy and like the DHS stuff. But the Air Force and the CIA haven't ponied up shit. Yeah, but it's I'm saying it appears to work though. Oh, PPG died. RIP. I mean, I think it's mostly the CIA and the Air Force intelligence, whoever got the, AFOSI stuff, wherever that is. Oh, he did break his leg, man. But that's fucked. Alright, let me restart the stream. We can watch some fucking
Our first
ESPN.
significant injury